Since the dawn of time, man has feared. Get ready to fear again as you join the last bastion of sanity podcast. Hello, everyone, and thank you for again tuning in to Last Bastion of Sanity podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hopkins, and I'm here with my co-host,
Joaquin Prussia.
And we are glad to have you listening in today because we are delving into the mysterious and often disturbing territory of aliens. So yeah, people like aliens. Other people do not like aliens. And yes, we're talking about extraterrestrials here. We are not a politically inclined podcast, but maybe we might delve into shadow governments or something like that later on.
Yeah.
This is something that we've waited a long time for. We were hoping to set up maybe some interviews with UFOologists or maybe even abductees sometime in the near future, but we don't have any of that today. So instead, we're just going to talk about aliens, just kind of to broach the subject and everything. So
yeah,
it's a big thing. It's really integrated itself into our pop culture.
It has indeed. In fact, like I've watched a lot of alien stuff growing up, but it's in my family. Like my mom is completely
an alien.
Yeah, she's completely convinced in this whole like ancient aliens thing. They've been with us since the days of the pyramids and stuff like that, and that's all this unexplainable stuff. It's all because the aliens influenced.
Okay, that's good. I mean, like, some people just decide to fill in gaps with God and Jesus and, their own religions, and some people decide to fill those gaps with aliens.
Yeah, spacemen.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you bring up that and everything. Like you were saying, ancient aliens, and since the days of Egypt and the pyramids, some of the earliest incidences or sightings of UFOs actually come back from ancient times. I believe it was 800, something like that, BC, where they have, I think, records of a scribe writing down an incident that happened over, I believe, southern Egypt at the time, of fireballs in the sky. And so it's something that pops up again and again and again. It's really kind of, in a way, part of our history as human beings to see UFOs and to want to engage, or at least imagine engaging with otherworldly visitors.
Yeah, I would say like probably since the days of I'm probably going to get my science wrong here or my history wrong. Was it Galileo that did the whole like looking into the stars? Yeah.
Astronomy.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm guessing, I don't know what came before him, but it's been a fascination of humans, ever since at least that period of time where we discovered that we were just one of many planets. That, if there's other planets out there, what's on them?
Yeah,
or absolutely. Who's on them?
There have been several people from NASA and scientists that have said that the possibility of planets and the vast endless ones out there, there's planets full of, just all sorts of different resources and everything, or possibilities. So
yeah, cool. And some of the stuff that I saw was saying, like, we tend to make everything about us. So we're looking at these other planets, and we're looking at this so-called this Goldilocks zone, or whatever, this habitable zone.
Right.
Where you're far enough from the sun that you're not going to get burned up, but you're close enough that you have liquid water.
Right.
And they were saying from some of the stuff that I saw that maybe it doesn't have to be like that. Maybe it can be based on some other than, I think they were talking about like cellulose-based life or something like that.
Not everything is necessarily carbon-based.
Yeah.
Not necessarily everything has to breathe oxygen.
Right.
Well, in that case, I think that's really interesting to bring up, too, like the difference between the planets, too. I mean, we have our our neighbor nearby, Red Mars, that some people are starting to populate, right?
Yeah, and
Or
I
at least
think
attempting to.
even when you talk about like how the conditions are here on Earth, there's parts of the Earth where life I think shouldn't exist, but I think they're actually finding like bacteria and stuff like that near erupting volcanoes.
I was about to say Australia, but I guess no. Australians are hardy. That's definitely a land that people shouldn't be able to live in, but they are living in. But yeah, like you were saying, and then also if you consider like going back to our deep sea episode,
Oh yeah,
some of those things live under such pressure, low light, etc. All these different variables
and the
that
way
should
that
kill something.
yeah, and the way they've adapted, they look
Right.
like monsters or aliens to us. Yeah.
So could you imagine something like trying to breathe in a different atmosphere, what it would have to adapt or look like in order to fucking
Right. And what if there's like
that?
more pressure in their environment or maybe less? Like,
Yeah, it can affect things like height, weight, the amount of gravity. Like,
yeah,
if you took a look at someone who would grow up on Mars versus, the Earth, then you would have someone who would be possibly, taller because they don't have as much pressure on gravity pinching their spine.
Yeah.
As, So, yeah, there's a lot of dimorphism in between these creatures, for
Right.
sure, and it's based off of their environments. But yeah, going back to like what we were saying with space, and it's always been our dream to be up there in the
Yeah.
stars, or wonder what comes from that. And I think that's part of what drives our want to colonize, to branch out and go out there,
yeah, that on top of the fact that we have limited resources on Earth,
Yeah, and we're destroying.
and we seem to like not care about that.
Right. Just like we got to go destroy other planets
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
So one thing that tie in, I think you have a video here, right, that you had pulled up of
Yeah.
talking about colonization of Mars.
Yeah, I've got videos about us exploring space, and then
Space exploring us.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, perfect. Let's cue that up.
So what exactly is going on? Elon Musk just announced his plans to begin colonizing Mars. He proposes that he could have humans on Mars by 2024 and use the same tech to get people to travel anywhere around the world in under 1 hour. This is all going to be done using a spacecraft codenamed the BFR. In a presentation at the International Astronautical Congress in Adelaide, Australia, Musk outlined his plan. It's not the first time that he's talked about Mars. His first public interest in the red planet was expressed back in 2001, and last year he claimed that 1 million people could be on Mars by the 2060s. This latest announcement was more of a fine-tuning of that plan.
All right, so the big fucking rocket, BFR.
Yep.
Interesting.
Dude, this guy's into everything. It seems like if it's technology, like he's in on it. He was in on the whole AI thing. He's now doing rockets.
Not only that, he was selling not flamethrowers.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, for a funding project that he was doing. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he's got his fingers in all the cool shit. Dude, rockets and flamethrowers?
Rockets and flamethrowers. He sounds like a gentleman of gentlemen.
Yes, he sounds like Santa. This
Yeah.
dude is Santa Claus.
Absolutely. He brings all the good stuff. So, yeah, the Space King here, Elon Musk, definitely gives us more thirst to venture out into the galaxy, utilize its resources. I mean, if you can imagine oil being on Earth and harnessing that sort of power, imagine what other sort of resources might be on other planets and what sort of technology can be devised or, made from that.
Yeah, if we could find something out in space that doesn't exist here on Earth, maybe it's something like with limitless energy or
Unobtainium.
yeah, something that we can fuse to our skeletons and become super beings.
Yes. So, like a symbiote.
Yeah.
So back to aliens, since we're kind of drifting out into space here. I mean, it's interesting to see with aliens how that's become so popular and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, space obviously captivates us as a race, we want to know what's out there.
Right. And I think because kind of tying in this whole Elon Musk, we're venturing into space. I think we're also on the opposite end. What does space have in store for us? What's coming at us?
Absolutely, because we're kind of floating out here on our own, and we've felt like that for a long time. I mean, other people will argue, of course, especially abductees and these UFOologists and a lot of other scientists and everything too. But ultimately, most people, in the past have kind of thrown these theories out the window. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just hard. It's hard to think of like the vastness of space, everything out there, and us being the only thing.
Right. We're coming to understand that now.
Right.
But in that case, then, if we take a look back in history, like we said, since Egypt, these sort of sightings and everything have been going on. Usually it seems like they kind of start with these lights in the sky,
Right.
Signs in the heavens, so to speak. I was reading a book called Dimensions by this author whose name is Jacques Vallée, and he's a French computer scientist and astrophysicist, I believe. And he posits all these interesting thoughts about aliens coming from other dimensions. But he also talks about how they've kind of been here the whole time, maybe. They're part of our history, our myths, and everything. So
Yeah, I guess if they're if they're, maybe that is the word, ultra dimensional.
yeah, dimensional beings.
Yeah, then maybe they can just simply flip it over, be in our dimension for a little while, and then flip it back. That's pretty interesting. I guess you would have to have some kind of super technology, some machinery that's not something that we
Yeah,
are
no,
thinking of.
worldly. I mean, like, we might try to identify it as a spacecraft, or in ancient times as like chariots in the sky,
Yeah.
or a cloud, a luminescent cloud being flown on by,
Yeah, we try to connect it back to what we have.
yeah,
the kind of
divs or
technology.
genies, yeah, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And I think that's also why maybe in the past we might have viewed these creatures as fairies or demons,
Yeah.
or spirits or anything like that, because it's easier for us to accept with our limited technology. Whereas now, maybe we're trying to explain it as UFOs and spacemen, especially when it started to come back in a resurgence during Roswell and all of that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I wonder, I don't know, could it be something in our mind? Like, what if they are just simply hopping through dimensions and our mind plays tricks and it gives us like visual, like almost like a cue, like this is how they're getting here, so it makes sense to us.
Well, there's an interesting thing that happens in a lot of sightings and incident cases that's termed as high strangeness. Now, what high strangeness essentially is like the weird, wacky shit that people experience during these pre-abduction or UFO sighting encounters. The high strangeness also comes back when people describe UFOs upon seeing them. Some of them say, like, I felt like it saw me back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
And,
it
like,
plays with your senses or something.
Exactly. If you were talking about, like, a fucking airplane or something like that, that's weird, right?
Right.
You wouldn't be like, oh, well, I saw this jet fighter in the sky, and it felt like it was staring back at me.
Right.
It felt like it was following my thoughts, my movements, and everything. And maybe that's kind of part of it. I mean, if you think of us as third-dimensional beings, what does our mind do? Like, what kind of acrobatics does it do to try and, like, make up the gaps in knowledge or understanding if we view something from a higher dimension?
Right. Yeah. I mean, your brain, I guess, just out of nature would try to compensate and
Right.
make logic out of it because it's not logical based on what we know in our universe.
Absolutely. If you think about it like on a lower level from ours, we're third-dimensional. Third-dimensional sphere, what does that look like on a two-dimensional plane? A circle.
Right.
You can't see all the sides around it.
Yeah.
What if us from, the third dimension, or comparatively to this, what if us circles were taking a look at a sphere? wouldn't that be fucking just boggling trying
Right.
to figure that out, or something from that plane of existence, coming through? It's like, that's why maybe a lot of these people not only report incidences of high strangeness, but also like these screen memories and everything. It could also be them wiping our fucking memories,
Yeah, that's
or
true.
we're blocking it out because it was too fucking traumatic.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is like the human mind just does the whole mental gymnastics and comes up with a solution to a problem that it can't solve.
You bet. And then maybe some of these lights too are like a herald, like you were saying, kind of like a warning sign or something.
Right.
If we're talking about dimensions, what we would imagine from sci-fi or whatever would be like a tear or something like that.
Mhm.
What if you saw like bright lights or something in the sky and then something came out of it, or
Right.
whatever? Like, but if that were the case, that thing coming out of it might not be third dimensional, and so our brain's still like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and it creates its own three-dimensional
Absolutely.
to make sense. Yeah.
But yeah, aside from like these lights and everything in the sky, UFOs, as general definition, unidentified flying objects, accounts for a lot. And obviously, a lot of these cases could be misidentity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like I'm sure if I'm sure there's still tribes and stuff around the world where they're still operating at a much simpler state than we do, and so to them a jet plane
Right.
looks like it could be a space thing.
Yeah, absolutely. In some cases and everything. But, I mean, on the other hand, if you take a look at someone from, Arizona in the case, or if you take a look back into Roswell in New Mexico, and then after they had their official story on what it was out there, they were saying that it was, fucking weather balloon.
Weather balloons. Yeah, I remember reading that.
So, I haven't seen, many weather balloons, but it's kind of
It's a balloon.
well, it's kind of
So
like
I can't-
Mothman in the shitbird.
Yeah. I can't
Like,
imagine that a balloon has like any real velocity. You know what I mean?
right,
So I don't know how they would explain that it's a weather balloon.
right. One thing that Valet was saying in the book too, that kind of ties into that misidentification and everything, though, is out of the reports, there are so many that just don't go reported, to like the government or the Air Force or anything.
Oh yeah,
And
sure.
initially, their kind of attitude towards it was like, so what? It hasn't been reported officially, so we don't give a shit.
Yeah, and I think personally, on a personal level, if I see something like that, I don't know if I would be
Right.
eager to go tell people,
Oh,
because I'm sure there's lots of people out there that point the finger and say this is the crazy guy.
yeah, some people are fucking crazy.
Right.
But yeah, in that case and everything, let's go ahead and see if we can take a look at another one of the videos here that might tie in.
An unidentified flying object. Spotted by two Navy fighter pilots flying high above the clouds. There's a thing. It's right. These newly released videos from the Department of Defense, published by the New York Times and Washington Post, part of a once secret government program to investigate sightings of so-called anomalous aerial vehicles in the skies. It sounds like a plot out of the X-Files. The truth is out there. Or something the men in black would zap from your memory. Flashlight you saw in the sky was not a UFO. But according to reports in the Washington Post and New York Times, the Department of Defense has spent at least $22 million since 2007 looking into UFO sightings. Former Nevada Senator Harry Reid, who helped secure the funding for the program, telling the New York Times, "I think it's one of the good things I did in my congressional service. I've done something that no one has done before." And now, the Pentagon officially acknowledging its Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they definitely recognize that they have been looking into it.
Yeah. And there's an elected official taking a lot of credit for something. But yeah, I mean, you can see like what did the figure that they give was like 22 million or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't just throw money at something where you don't think it's leading somewhere. Like,
Exactly. So, in that case, you guys should take a look into our Patreon. If you want, that would be great.
Some additional funding.
Yeah, throw some money towards us. We're going somewhere with your money, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a lot to fucking sink in there. And if you take a look into it, we start seeing government officials. They start freaking out once it gets a lot closer to their home territory.
Yeah, exactly. And then you saw, like, the jet fighter describing what he's seeing and everything. Like, obviously he's familiar with flying objects. He's flying a jet. So he's probably familiar with what other countries' capabilities are. So when he's seeing something like that, like, he's seeing something that's not, it doesn't look human.
Right.
Like, all of our stuff looks pretty similar,
Right.
Country to country. So he's seeing something that's just bizarre.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that, like, gets me.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't blame you. Like, everyone's fucking, you assume that anyone who has their hand in the cookie jar, so to speak, on this alien or UFO, binge, is going to be one of those wackos.
Yeah.
It's going to be a guy that wears, button-up, like, Hawaiian shirts, tinfoil hat, yep. He really, really likes E.T.,
Yeah.
makes him happy.
But when I was hearing this pilot, describe what he's seeing and everything, like, I don't know, like, these guys are trained for combat in the sky between us and other nations.
Right.
So when they see something like that, it's weird because you're prepared to see other flying things.
Right.
Like, this is what you're doing. This is your job. You protect the country against other flying machines by getting into your flying machine and shooting them down.
Exactly.
But then he sees something that, like,
shakes him.
yeah, like, normally if it was an enemy plane, he'd be like, well, crap, now we're in combat or something. But he sees this and he doesn't know what to do. Like,
he's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. This is not an Earthling vehicle. This is something, and if it is, what they'd be operating at a level of technology that's so advanced. Like, would you turn and shoot at that?
Dude, exactly, yeah. Are you going to start an intergalactic war at that point?
Right.
Or
Or if it is somehow secretly Earth-based, they are way more technologically advanced than we are, and your fighter jet probably isn't going to stand a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the interesting thing, is now our military is starting to go into space.
Yes.
Space Force. Joaquin, now you have a long and storied history with Halo. So,
I do indeed.
I want to know your views. How successful do you think the Space Force thing is going to be?
I don't even know what the Space Force is supposed to do. Have they discovered a Halo out there that I didn't know about? Because this would be pretty cool.
I don't know.
But, I mean, are they... Yeah, I don't get it. It was like... And it was a sudden announcement, too. I think it would be...
It's like a distraction.
Yeah, I think it'd be better if they just gradually said, hey, we're trying to do more space stuff.
Yeah.
But now it's like, we got badges over here.
Yeah.
Like, there's the sheriff and the deputy.
Like, oh shit!
Yeah.
Fucking
Space
they're freaking
Force.
out.
Yeah.
They're going to be having applications.
So is this like supposed to be another branch of the military? So I know we've got the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines. Who am I leaving out? The Coast Guard.
Right.
Space Force?
Space Force. I'm not quite sure if they're going to bring in the other branches and integrate them, or Army, or if Army follows that. I mean, Army, I guess, in this case, would just defend, like, our home base, I guess. As far as Space Force goes, the only thing I have in mind, like I told you before, is just space truckers. They're going to go out there, and if they don't fuck up other planets, they're going to try and fuck everything on the planet.
Yeah, that's true.
So, watch out, universe.
America's
coming at you dick first.
We're sending the most horny of our people out to explore.
Right.
So we're going to be doing some probing.
Oh God. Well, I certainly hope. I mean, with how we've seen certain officials inducted into our government and how our government handles some things, I would hope that they would screen our Space Force cadets thoroughly
Right.
before going out there. I mean, if you have to be an astronaut, remember everybody wanted to be a fucking astronaut.
Yeah, I do remember that.
That takes fucking skill and time, and you gotta be fucking smart, right?
Right.
If you're gonna be an astronaut. Space Force just gonna be like
Is this just cowboys we're sending into space?
space cowboys.
Yeah.
Or what was that other one? Was it where they had the meteorite or the asteroid, the comet coming in towards space, and then they sent out, was it Bruce Willis?
Oh, yeah, it was. What was that? Yeah, it was Bruce Willis and a bunch of, were they oil people?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were oil drillers.
Oil
yeah.
drillers, yeah.
That was what it was. God, I want to say Deep Impact. Does that sound about right? No, that's like an action movie off on the side.
I have no clue.
Okay, we're going to cut this.
But they were like space cowboys, yeah.
No, we're not going to cut this. Listen in, folks. So yeah, Space Cowboys. It's kind of like in the movie. They were just like said the same thing. Like, this is shit that astronauts do. You guys are a bunch of fucking, B-class people, blue-collared, shirt-wearing folks.
Yeah,
It's like, you don't fucking belong in space.
but we're going to put you there.
Yeah, we got to, because we got to blow up that fucking comet or asteroid coming towards us.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Space Force is on the other side. Apparently, we just want to send them out into space to fuck space, and that's the mission. So why not just get our roughest, toughest American?
That's what it seems like so far anyway. But this seemed like a sudden, announcement to make.
Absolutely.
So, who knows? Hopefully he's got smarter people behind it, and it's going to be something completely different than what we're talking about. But if not, Space Cowboys, this could get pretty entertaining, I guess.
We called it. We called it right here on Last Bastion of Sanity podcast.
We did indeed.
Anyway, I digress from Space Cowboys. As far as aliens go, like we were saying, coming in, going out, it's been here for a long time. There are multiple different encounter levels. I think that you've found out through, researching, and then I found out through researching. It was originally set up in 1972, published in the book The UFO Experience, a scientific inquiry by UFO researcher and astronomer J. Allen Hynek. He created this scale
Right.
of close encounters. On the scale, it kind of talks about which level it is, and it describes, what kinds of things you're seeing.
This is why we have the famous movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, because it's based on that scale.
Yeah, that's where it was really popularized for sure. People really, recognize it now. Originally, it started out to where he would only have 3 close encounter levels.
Yeah. See, and growing up and having that movie, I thought Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I thought they were referring to the alien as the third kind, but
Yes.
it's not. It's the level of encounter.
Absolutely. That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
I was just like, so the third kind of being.
Yeah,
And I was
exactly.
like animals, peoples,
Aliens. Yeah, there we go.
you go. But yeah, as far as the first part in the scale, the encounter of the first kind, you're gonna start seeing stuff like flying objects, UFOs,
Yeah, like
visual
sightings.
sightings. Yeah, usually less than about 500 feet away. At this level, they would say that you'd see an appreciable angular extension and considerable detail. In this case, what that fighter pilot had, he had a close encounter of the first
Kind.
Absolutely, right there. What we would say above and before this, kind of like, warning signs leading up to the scale, not exactly part of a first kind or a close encounter, because it's not a close encounter, would be like lights in the sky. UFOs seen in the daytime, but they're like far, far off. They call these daylight discs in some cases. And then radar visuals. some UFO reports show confirmation, of a radar visual. They've tracked and seen physical stuff. Others haven't. In some cases, that could also, pan back to the dimensional theory, where in some cases where it doesn't show up or whatever, or it just blips out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that they fly off or, jetted out into space. It could be that they're gone.
They went into our dimension and then flipped it back.
So, and if they're just
long enough to show up on, like, maybe not to the naked eye, but on technology.
On technology, for sure, yeah. And it's interesting, too, that on that side, technology is not always so reliable, which some people will experience in close encounters of the second kind. This is a UFO event where a physical effect is supposed to happen there. This can be like any sort of static interference or anything, which happens a lot to a lot of electronic devices, to people's cars in some UFO incidences, to maybe even airplanes and ships in some cases. They've reported when encountering some UFOs, their gauges just
like compasses spinning around, stuff like that. I was kind of thinking almost like when you were describing it, almost like what people talk about with white noise, and like the spiritual dimension, I guess you would say.
Oh,
like
trying something in the middle. That's really scary. But maybe that's sort of the thing.
In fact, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I remember ID4, that movie. I was a younger lad than I am now, but I wasn't as young as you were back then. I was maybe 20, 19, somewhere around there. And anyway, I remember there was that scene where they decode this code that had been hidden in our own transmissions. It was like they were using our own technology against us.
Right.
And so I don't know what kind of encounter that would be because it's hidden.
Right.
It's like they had these old TV sets.
Right.
And the way the TV sets work, they refresh like every 60 hertz or something. I think our TVs still do that now. But I guess in between the 60 frames per second, there might be a frame that was like the alien technology or whatever.
Yeah.
But because it happened in that 60th of a second, the human eye didn't catch it. Right. And it was just one guy that ended up like catching it, and like they're piggybacking off of our technology.
Absolutely.
It's almost like when you think of these places like Walmart, and you see that Walmart's offering cellular service. Yeah. Well, they didn't build a cellular network.
No.
They're piggybacking off of Sprint or Verizon or whoever it happens to be. Right. And so they have this virtual network. And so I think like they were kind of doing that same thing in that movie. Yeah. Now, I don't know. I don't get suspicious when I see my TV blip, but it's kind of interesting to think of how they would come in and use a pre-existing thing to help them colonize.
Oh, absolutely. That would be pretty scary. I mean, as far as I'm concerned with aliens,
but I'm not sure how that falls on
beings.
The encounter part.
I think it'd be probably further out, just contact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like first contact.
But it's like hidden contact that they're using.
Yeah.
It's like,
parasiting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Alien parasites. But no, definitely that does bear mentioning. But I'm wondering myself if it might be something kind of fluctuating from either their technology or from themselves. In some cases, people have reported interest in magnets or magnetically charged areas for some aliens. So it could be that might be what's throwing things off, is a large magnetic field or push or anything like that. In this case, with Close Encounters of the Second Kind, you also see these cropping up with effects on like animals. If animals react, some people who encounter a lot of UFOs say that like their dogs either start freaking out or they go completely silent. there's something off or wrong about them. Wild animals in the area either just being completely silent in some wooded areas where people have noticed like crop circles and stuff like that. And along those lines, crop circles or any other physiological evidence, physical evidence there shown would be like impressions in the ground. You might see that it's been blasted by fire, scorched ground,
Scorched earth.
vegetation. Or there might even be traces of like chemicals, or in some cases, vegetation itself. There was one story that was reading in that Dimensions book, a case where they said that they found some kind of like greenish, like white powder, and they tested it, and it was like a fungal residue. So it's weird what some of these things leave behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think if we're getting visited, maybe they are leaving garbage behind or something like that.
Well, if you take a look and then kind of compare at least that last remark here to, like I was saying, in some cases, old tales of like fairies or whatever could be, in some incidences, reports of these alien or dimensional beings. What if these fairy rings, in some cases, people would talk about like these rings that fairies would dance around you and keep you immobile and everything. And in some cases, these would pop up around the world, and you point them out. Have you ever seen a ring of just mushrooms going around
No.
in a circle?
Uh-uh.
They have several of these popping up. I'm not saying it's aliens every time. I'm not aliens. But like that fungal residue or something, you know, it kind of makes you think. Like maybe some of these stories and tales and everything have some sort of link to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if they're operating on an alien technology, maybe they even have resources that we wouldn't have here on Earth, different elements.
Right.
And so maybe they're fueled by things that we don't use here.
Right.
And so their propellant, whatever impact that has on our environment in the air or whatever, maybe it leaves some mysterious residue that doesn't normally happen on their own planet because their technology is designed for that planet.
Right. Yeah, that would be really interesting too, as well. Maybe like something from the exhaust or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Like if they're
burning mushrooms or something.
if their exhaust hits our air and creates like diamonds or something, and they suddenly start raining down from above.
Right. And they might even find things, you know, from us that could be more precious or wealthy or whatever than what we would consider. They might take a look at a diamond. And
The
be like,
spice.
oh, this is crap. Yeah, the spice is essential for space travel.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's Close Encounters of the Second Kind, and then here we go, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This is an encounter when there is a creature present, something that's animate, something that's, you know, there that you can pick out. These would include all sorts of the different descriptions that they've given of aliens or alien beings, which of course includes like humanoid-looking creatures, robots, or humans themselves, because in some cases they've either reported these alien visitors as looking completely human-like, somewhat human-like, or they've also said that other people have seen other humans on these UFOs, either captured or, you know,
Or like they're in on it?
Yeah, or they're in on it. A lot of people report seeing a lot of military-like people, not necessarily in on it as well, but alongside them or during these abduction experiences.
Space Force.
Maybe Space Force is already born, and they're just slowly pulling off the covers of it. And they'll be like, so, we have some people that have been doing this for a while. They're going to get used to the probe.
Yeah.
But after that and everything, you start to have further close encounters. These are extensions, not necessarily native to Hynek scale, and were created later on. These include Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, which is my favorite category. It's the actual event of the abduction. Now, this is fucking terrifying.
So
Could you imagine being taken?
is it just an abduction, or is a fourth kind encounter just any kind of like interaction where there's stuff happening from both sides?
Well, that's what some people argue. In some cases, like Jacques Vallée, he argues that the fourth kind should refer to cases when witnesses experience a transformation of their sense of reality. So, someone who has been marked, basically, in that case, is what Vallée says.
Okay.
Cases where someone has, so that you don't include people who have not been abducted, when they have absurd hallucinations or dreamlike events that are associated with it. Because some people can be on the ground just freaking the fuck out or whatever, or experience like that high strangeness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then in some cases with fourth kind, they're actually taken. So that's interesting that the fourth kind of has a weird dual-headed meaning depending on which scientist you want to follow.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if an alien was here with us and we were playing, I don't know, but we were playing some kind of card game or something, poker, is that a fourth kind since there's some interaction there?
Well, in that case and everything, I think that would be, if he was with us and everything, that wouldn't necessarily be, that would be the third kind again, where
Okay.
he's actually present. Fourth kind would be like if they,
Does it necessarily have to be hostile?
No. In some cases, it is just straight up abduction. Other cases, like Vallée was saying, when you experience a transformation of your sense of reality.
Okay.
In
that
this
makes
case,
sense.
like basically, like they have altered your perception somehow. In some cases, people are like paralyzed or whatever, and then like, these beings, like if you were taking a look at that John Edwards case, these beings do what they do to your body, and then you can't fucking move. How terrifying would that be if literally you were just locked down? And this is what some people who experience, sleep paralysis say. It's like, you're aware and everything, but you're trapped in your own body. So imagine just these fucking weird alien things doing what they want to do while you're on pause and you're like,
Yeah, that would be extremely terrifying.
fourth kind of
yeah. Okay.
That shit.
That would do. Of course, that would alter my ideas of like reality because that's like severe trauma right there.
Absolutely. There you go. So yeah, in that case, or like, shit like that happening, it's really fucking scary. Then we go up into encounters of the fifth kind. This is direct communication. This is like talking. So if that alien came into the room while we were playing cards, sat down with us, started talking, fifth kind. There we go. This was named by Stephen Greer, a UFO kind of research group here. They're called the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. They described it as like kind of contact experiences through conscious, voluntary, and, in some cases even human-initiated contact with these extraterrestrial intelligences.
Okay, so Josh, we're at a point now where we're playing cards with them. At some point, we're gonna start. What word do I want to use? We're gonna start boinking one another because it always comes down to that. So
Is that how your card games are?
it starts out with a card game, ends up with a happy ending. But but I'm just saying, is that on this list? At some point, if we get together and bump uglies,
Not yet. We'll get there.
okay.
Hold on. You have to have a few dates first.
We're talking about space truckers and everything. So.
Right, but you gotta have a few dates first.
Okay.
We gotta go up the scale first before we get to that kind of close encounter.
Okay.
The close encounter of the sixth kind is probably the most terrifying for some, but in my opinion, surviving through an encounter and having to deal with it afterwards is more terrifying than in the sixth kind
What was this
being
where they-
killed.
Oh, yeah.
So this is really severe example of a second kind encounter, and that's what some people consider, like they just kind of lump it in because you're having contact with this being that's there, But
This is where like maybe a probing turned into like, hey, maybe we'll dissect him while
right,
we're at it. Okay.
they're like, let's see what else is in there.
yeah.
But this would be a death of a human or an animal associated with a UFO sighting or, encounter there. So, like, cattle mutilations, shit like that guy at the Stardust Ranch was talking about with his horses and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, just dead. And then lastly, Joaquin, what you've been waiting for all along. Make sure you wear protection. The creation of a human/alien hybrid, either by sexual reproduction or artificial scientific methods. So either you guys are going to do it, or what some people have said, you're harnessed. And in some cases, people have just been like, well, the aliens took my Siemens, and it wasn't any fun. So they induce an orgasm in you,
but not a good
take
one.
your stuff, and leave.
Not the what's the word I want to use? Not the natural method.
No, it's artificial, Joaquin. So literally, in some cases, these people were just like, oh, they put a vacuum tube on me, and then, they just take it out. So that's pretty disturbing, of course.
That sounds like it would be paid for.
I would imagine so. I don't think that being abducted, being touched, having any of these violations done to you by these alien beings is particularly pleasant.
Do humans ever try to explain, like, hey, I do this pretty routinely. Do you want to just give me some space?
Just give me, put me in a room with a magazine and a cup, I'll come back out.
Right.
Like, this is normal procedure here.
I wouldn't do that here. Yeah, we even have, like, banks. We got banks of this stuff.
Yeah, just tell the aliens. Be like, dude, there's some fucking banks you can draw from. Like, let's just start trading. If this is what you want, that's fucking great.
Yeah.
Give us more technology.
Give us the spice and you can have...
Yeah, absolutely. We'll give you the mayo.
Yeah.
So, from that point and everything, Close Encounters of the Seventh Kind, it can't really get further out from that. I would imagine. You know what I mean? So, that is our scale that we have to refer to on the fucked up things that, happen when we come in contact or possibly contact with alien beings.
I wonder if there could be one more level added to the scale. You have this shirt that I like, and I see you wear it pretty often. It's the Brundlefly.
Oh yes.
I wonder if that would be the next level. If they could somehow invent a machine where two of us can go in and come out as one being.
Jesus. Just integration.
Yeah.
Where the alien is inside.
Yeah, almost like that Scanners movie as well. Like the end of the movie where he's got the one dude's body, but the voice that's coming out is the voice of the dude that disappeared.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's some pretty scary stuff. Some people would probably say that on that list, that might even fall into the Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. If you've seen the movie Fourth Kind, you might kind of see a reference in that where she's like possessed by the fucking alien. You know what I mean? That would definitely fall under the fucking category of an experiencing a transformation of your sense of reality.
That's almost like parasitic at that point, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or like a fucking demon or something.
Yeah.
Which maybe some of these people were fucking channeling aliens. Speaking of which, we do have a video here. I'm gonna pull up mine of a person who is apparently channeling an alien being. These benevolent Pleiadians is what they call them. Sometimes send us information from the stars to guide us. They're peaceful people, and they help us. They're like spiritual creatures almost, I guess, is the best way I could put it. And they're helping us fight the bad aliens. So let's now listen to this prophet from the stars. So here we have our Pleiadian traveler, channeler.
So do you have to be sitting in the...
A lot of people, yeah, they're in about meditation poses. As you can see, the Pleiadian, I believe, just entered her body. I think that's what those Tourette's, sudden jerks were about. So, just getting settled in.
Yeah. This one's a Pleiadian?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Receiving transmissions.
Right. Maybe they just communicate in moans and spasms, dude. This is like a conversation.
Just wait. It gets better. I think we actually get some communication coming in here. What is this? Fifth kind? Sounds about right.
Oh, okay. Like, just like walks by like, this is daily shit.
Yeah. I feel really sorry for that
Just like how I walked out of the picture like, she's doing it again.
So I guess there's also families of Pleiadians, like these extensions of spirits. I think it's just multiple personality disorder.
Yeah.
Like on a very low key level. Like these people are like trying to manage it that way, maybe. I'm not quite sure, but see how she's just freaking the fuck out, twisting her head and everything. I mean, some people speak tongues, Joaquin. That happens sometimes. So, but yeah.
Wouldn't that be
Maybe
crazy if it
tripping
was
out
like a transmission? Like they have this little like computer on the other end, and they're just manipulating her.
Be pretty interesting.
That would be.
Sure, but I'm not quite sure why they're posting to YouTube.
It's because they're playing The Sims,
Okay.
except when they're using us as the characters. They're like, this character needs a YouTube channel.
Well, I mean, some of these Pleiadians also channeling here, they need donations too, Joaquin.
Oh,
Yeah,
do
make
they
sure.
do they have a Patreon?
Yeah, some of them do. Make sure that you send, them money too, because they need it. They're
Yeah.
space beings out in space that only have our best interests in mind.
Exactly.
And so you got to help out these erstwhile prophets too.
Yep.
I mean, they don't have any choice, Joaquin. This is a curse, okay?
Exactly. Yeah. This is unwanted.
They don't want to do this. They are chosen.
They're just a tool.
They're they're just an antenna with speakers attached to it
Yep.
and meat.
A meat antenna.
A meat antenna. Other people would consider that something else, but we'll not go down that path. Any case, we got some really weird people, all sorts of different contact and everything. So, I don't know if I buy into the Pleiadian channeling or anything like that, but there's definitely some sort of close encounter going on.
Yeah, I'm thinking. For some reason, my mind always goes back to the anal probe, and I'm just wondering if they put it like a transmitter or receiver, I guess you would say,
A receiver. There you go.
up in that anal cavity, because I mean that's just a pocket to
Right.
put stuff in, and and then of course if somebody is communicating to you through your anus,
Yeah, you'd probably
you're
get a little wild.
You're gonna spasm a little bit.
Well, in that case and everything, that might be. In some cases, I mean, I personally think, like, aliens just haven't figured out how to be, like, take our readings, like, through our mouth. They're like, so this thermometer, which we haven't decided, to slim down or anything, we're just going to keep it in, like, the standard, bulky size, probably enough to make you very painful. They're like, this will measure the temperature of your body. It's just like, hey, there's another orifice you can put that in,
Yeah.
right? Like, can we get those readings from somewhere else?
What if they came like really early on in our primitive stage where we don't have the ability to negotiate and stuff like that, so we're just cave people. They grab one of us up, they put it in our mouth, and this dumbass bit down on it and broke their machine. And at that
Like,
point,
it's
they're
going
like,
up his ass from
yeah,
now
from now on, everything is rectal. There's no teeth in that cavity.
Well, thanks a lot, Grug,
Yeah.
the caveman. You've doomed us to a life of being anally prone. But who knows? In some cases, other people, like I said, have been given the seventh time treatment, is what we're going to call it, and they've impregnated or had, some sort of relations with these people, and they're reported to have hybrid, babies. In some cases with this, obviously, we don't have any evidence of half human, half alien babies. There's disappearing pregnancies, or some people explain them away as miscarriages. But either way, it's a phenomenon.
Yeah, I wonder what happens when they mix the genes together. Like, what if it backfires? Like, what if you end up with God, I can't remember that movie. What was the movie with the vampires and the werewolves? Except the werewolves were called lichens. And anyway, I think one of the characters, one of the characters ends up being able to become both vampire and werewolf, and becomes like the badass of the whole world. Essentially, yeah. What happens if it backfires on them and our genes combined with their genes make this mutant thing that's like super powerful? And I don't know.
Who knows? And who knows why there might be this alleged, seventh kind sort of contact. If you want to follow maybe like the dimensional being theory, which I'm starting to put my eggs in that basket a lot, especially after reading these case books by Jacques Vallée. I would recommend to anybody out there who might be listening to check into these. But these dimensional aliens, what I was supposing is like, what if they need something from our dimension, something dimensional like that, so that they can stay here indefinitely, or find a way to penetrate, invade, and like eventually populate this dimension? Or is this like their attempt to making like dimension knots, Are they making their own, people so that they can go into other third dimensional worlds and shit like that? Or, are they able to not remain here indefinitely? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do they have to leave, like, as soon as they come in? Like, do they have a limited time to exist in this dimension or something? Because a lot of people describe also sort of like spacesuits and other sorts of apparatuses and everything that these creatures also might be wearing. In that case, could those be like their temporary, kind of like us, to protect us in space? Could those like suits or anything protect them from the qualities of our dimension?
Yeah, things that are foreign to them from their dimension.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's interesting to think, maybe, but who knows why they're taking us. I just know that it's happening a lot. And that's the scariest thing, is that if you want to deny the existence of aliens, that's cool. But know that there are hundreds and hundreds, thousands of cases of people who have been taken, abducted, and, I mean, they definitely believe that happened to them.
Oh, yeah.
It's psychologically scarred them. So, let's take a look and see if we have something to kind of, backtrack on either these close encounters or the abduction actually itself.
My name is Mel Barnell, and I'm a part-time truck driver, and I own this miniature golf course and also the go-kart track out here. That certain morning, I happened to look over into the sky to the northeast, and I seen a very, very bright light up there, like a very bright star. And then I said, well, that's moving. And I just stood there and watched it, what it was doing, and it was just coming down out of the sky real slow, and no noise, just quiet, and I couldn't see no wings or nothing, just floating right through the midair up there. And I thought, well, if I don't tell nobody that I seen something over town tonight, nobody will believe me tomorrow.
Mel drove his truck to the Highland, Illinois Police Department to report an unidentified flying object heading toward the neighboring town of Lebanon.
Well, this is from Highland PD. I've been to a truck driver just stopped in and said there was a flying object in the area of Lebanon. A joke, right? No, this is not a joke. That's one up.
Martin was the first police officer to respond to the call.
Good advise, there's a very bright light east of town, and it's changing colors. It's heading westbound now. Matter of fact, there's a shadow up to the subject over here for now. 25 to actually something, I don't know what it is.
At 4:23 a.m., police officer David Martin saw the UFO over a field on the outskirts of Shiloh.
I happened to look over and saw this large floating object that was just moving very slowly. It was probably about a football field in length. It had 3 large bright lights lighting up the sky underneath it. I honestly don't know what it was that I saw, other than I know it wasn't a plane or a helicopter or a blimp.
Police reported the object over Lebanon, over Shiloh, over Millstad, over Dupo. Detective Mark Lupino says he saw it as it approached O'Fallon, Illinois.
I was driving eastbound on Highway 50 when I see the object, the UFO, if you will. I first thought it was probably a bunch of helicopters flying in some type of formation. As I drew closer to it, I saw it start to cross over the roadway. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before. You could see the lights, and you could see something that they were attached to, and it was shaped like a triangle. I'm freaking out. I'm like, what the heck is this? So I continue, and it's going over these trees. By the time I get here toward the left turn lane, I duck into this left turn lane here, and I stop right about here. I wanted to listen to see if I could hear any type of engine noise. I could not.
Wow. So there you go. Some close encounters of the first, it seems there.
Yeah, and it's weird how he describes it as being silent.
Right.
So it was lit up, so it didn't sound like it was afraid to be seen. But whatever technology it's using, I mean, that's scary because I would assume that they probably do have some kind of, because we have technology to hide our most advanced, like, airplanes and stuff like that.
Right.
So it probably could have been invisible if it wanted to be.
Right.
And it makes no sound.
Well, I mean, and then in some cases, like, who's gonna fucking believe you?
Right.
I mean,
But in this
these
case-
aliens might be brassy. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
in this case, we've got multiple sources. Now, what was the guy's name at the beginning? Melvin?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was just Melvin's
Yeah, I'd be
story
like, dude, shut
based
the
on
fuck
Melvin, yeah, I would say no. But then he's got officers of the law,
Right.
saying like, hey, we saw this thing too, and we've got, them speaking about it with one another, saying, are you seeing this? I just saw it over here.
Yeah, it throws the credibility there like way, way high up.
Yeah,
there.
definitely. Like, how could these guys are all sharing the same conspiracy at the same time?
Well, that's like the thing is that you do see all of these UFO sightings, a lot of them, happening in the same area.
Mhm.
Other sort of alien experiences also seem to be tied into the area too. So it's almost like, and then the numbers, obviously, like you were saying, it's the same thing with the abductions. It's like with all of these reports, sightings, talk about it. Is it more than just hysteria? And it's like
Right.
with a sudden cropping up like that. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, when you're talking about the abductions, where they're it sounds like they're sharing similar experiences.
Very similar experiences.
yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. That banding together of numbers is one thing there that really makes it happen. Another thing I would say is, like I was saying, was the sudden happenstance of it. People don't expect this stuff to happen.
Right.
They're not hedging their bets to be like, well, maybe I might see a UFO, like the people who were out there in, Roswell or something, that are trying to sit there and expect to see some of these UFOs. Sometimes they just crop up all over the world, even.
Yeah. I think I remember hearing something about that. I didn't find any videos about it, but where people were reporting similar things happening, but in different locations.
Right. Not just with the lights, but also kind of like the physical evidence.
Yeah,
as well.
like they see something in the sky, and
Yeah.
it looks like something I'm seeing over here, and that doesn't look like no airplane.
Right. that is a no fucking weather balloon.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of panning back to that, just all the people in the area, and then also that they weren't expecting to see that.
Right.
Here's another lady who wasn't expecting a few things.
My partner and I moved to the San Luis Valley to raise cattle. Did not move here for UFOs, and didn't even realize that this was a hot spot of the nation for sightings, and I knew nothing about them anyway.
San Luis Valley.
This is
Well, then I
Colorado.
started meeting some of the locals down here, and they all had UFO stories. I mean, one after another, even to the point where there was a real estate company years ago that would make people who bought land from them sign a disclaimer saying that they were aware that there was UFO activity in this valley.
Get UFO insurance.
So anyway, it got to the point I'd giggle and say, we need a
Geico?
UFO watchtower, never ever thinking I'd ever do it. Well, after 4.5 years of struggling with cows because they don't eat sand real well, they about broke me. So I was talking to one of the farmers one day and I said, I've had to sell the cows. I don't want to sell my land. And he said, you need to put up that UFO watchtower you did about. You'd have fun.
I'm guessing that she didn't have fun.
No, well, I think it's getting her attention, and it's bringing in traffic because people are inquisitive. People, want to know about the unknown.
And oftentimes, that's exactly what leads down to people's downfall, I think. Is the fact that people want to know about the unknown. They're reaching out constantly to try and test the limits of, the fabric of reality.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think, like we were talking about prior to the show here today, human beings don't seem to have that same drive that a lot of wild animals and creatures in nature seem to have, which is that security, that want to survive, that drive to, against all costs, preserve ourselves from danger.
Yeah, I think you're right. In fact, humans, for some reason, I think unique to us, we have this this almost drive of the thrill of possible danger or death.
Annihilation.
Yeah, we create these amusement parks with these rides that could scare the people to death.
Yeah,
And we pay money to do this.
absolutely.
So yeah, I think that might be unique to us as a species, to just go out there and not only investigate the unknown, but to push it to limits,
Right.
push ourselves to certain limits that
Yeah.
maybe even we shouldn't.
And that's definitely probably a part of what drives this popularity and this pop culture surrounding aliens and extraterrestrials, to be sure, is that excitement for something new.
Yeah.
Definitely something dangerous that might be dangerous to us as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe even a drive or an ambition to be part of history.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're, some farmer out in the middle of nowhere in Montana, Arizona, or one of those dry, deserty, arid regions that these UFOs and aliens seem to keep popping up in, and you happen to find, something new or something that might be linked to it, you're no longer the dirt farmer from Arizona, you're the guy who has discovered possibly an extraterrestrial race or intergalactic something,
Yeah, it's like you become their first point of contact. Like,
Right.
you're the dude on top. You're going to be in history.
Well, it's interesting, too, in a lot of these UFO sightings and everything that do drop down into the higher levels of close encounters, like we
Right.
were talking about with the Hynek scale earlier, where they do seek out and reach out and seem to contact some of these people, too, that have almost been, wanting it. They send out those vibes almost to the universe, and they're like, man, I need something great. Like, I need something to reach out to me. Other times, and in most cases, it also seems like these guys aren't reaching out to scientists.
Right. Yeah, they're abducting people on farms.
Yeah, they're abducting the blue collar, the
Yeah.
normal, typical common people, and maybe that's what they're interested in too.
Yeah, what's that famous picture? The dude with the pitchfork and the,
Oh yeah, God,
it's like American
Gothic.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, they're interested in
It's
getting
those
that
people.
guy in his
Yeah,
life.
they saw that painting or whatever, and they were like, "Those are the people we want to abduct."
Yeah, just like these are the common, like everybody knows them.
Exactly.
So, well, and it also makes it, I would say, a lot easier too. If you're going to take a look into a lot of these studies where abductions have happened, I mean, so few of them, unless they're in cases of like someone who has schizophrenia or mental disorders, or it's a hoax or a claim or somebody making it up. A lot of cases show that these people are abducted from rural areas.
Right.
You don't see people who are surrounded by a population or anything like that who are getting taken off. And I think in that case, if it's not like good predictions from the aliens themselves, or if they're like not already well informed, it's basic tactics. It's like you don't kidnap someone who's in the middle of a whole bunch of other people that might be missed or anything. You wait till some guy goes out to camp in the middle of the night, in the wilderness, and then you sneak in and grab him from his cabin.
Yeah, you don't touch down in the middle of the Super Bowl and kidnap a quarterback or something like that.
Yeah. So you pick up someone, in this case, like we were talking about famous abductions that had happened before. One of the people that I had read the book on, Communion, was by Whitley Strieber. He's a fiction writer. He wrote all sorts of stuff prior to this, wrote some stuff after it. Like I told you, he got like that fuzzy feeling from the aliens, like, hey, maybe these guys are here to help us. I'm like, no, dude. But he was one of those people where he went out, he went to his cabin in the woods. I think he even had like some friends visiting with them that later on, when put under hypnosis regression, they also remembered kind of some weird stuff. But that was like the first time in like his adult years that he thought something was off. But he was abducted there in his cabin, got back, went back home. He started having just like these kind of PTSD episodes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Looking under the bed, checking to see if all the doors were locked, stuff like that.
So he's
It's
getting like triggered, like he
Yeah.
heard something, and
right.
like bringing back these like repressed memories or whatever.
Exactly. And that's like where a lot of this stuff comes up. Some people, I guess, do remember. A big majority of them completely fucking forget. Just like the Men in Black fucking little flashy light thing, like you were saying
Yeah, just
before.
wiping
like,
out that
just
memory.
wiped out, yeah. And I was wondering myself, kind of like if we follow the theory handed down on like dimensions and Jacques Vallée with those creatures, like what if our minds literally can't comprehend the shit that we've seen or that we're seeing or that's happened to us, and in conjunction with that PTSD, like it has to make up all this other shit because like we just can't fucking comprehend it without just going stark raving mad, you know?
Yeah. So our brain makes up for this traumatic experience and takes that out and replaces it with, I don't know, a trip to Baskin Robbins and got some ice cream.
Right.
Like the most mundane thing.
Right. In some cases with these people, like in the Betty and Barney Hill case, I believe one of them had said, like, when they were experiencing the UFO later on, when they had reported what had happened, they were all kind of fuzzy and everything. They were like, oh, there was, like, some construction in the road, and we had to, like, move off to the road or whatever to detour around it. And then he reported that there was, like, a road stop with, like, police, or maybe it was vice versa, but they had two separate weird stories trying to explain the reason why they went way out of the way from the road in the first place, and like they didn't match up, like they were false implanted memories, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's part of the aliens working there, or if it's our own mind is trying to be like, whoa, this shit is way too fucked up, like trying to remember this shit later, you're just gonna be fucking babbling
Yeah.
like Daffy Duck and shit in the fucking loony bin.
Yeah, I think that happens even without aliens being involved. I think humans do, like, they repress some of those traumatic experiences,
Oh, yeah.
and I think something has to take its place.
Right.
So they just replace it with some really boring thing, you know,
Yeah, that-
something
and-
bland that you don't have to remember
Yeah, that in some cases might not make sense in the bigger
Right.
picture altogether. Like, in this case, I think they were traveling back kind of later in the night and everything, and then they went like hours out of the way from what it would take for a normal trip. And they were just like, oh yeah, there was a little bit of road construction. He was like, oh yeah, the police like had a little checkpoint or whatever. And it's like,
I wonder if
wait a
that's
second.
happened in my life, because my parents will argue about certain things that don't make any sense to me,
Right.
like who bought the dish soap and whose responsibility it is to buy the dish soap the next time. And they will go into stories about, no, I remember going to this particular grocery store and paying this amount of money for this soap. And the other one will have an argument, and they'll give out the same amount of evidence that they bought the soap.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
The human mind is faulty in itself. I
Yeah.
think we manufacture memories on our own sometimes, obviously, to fit whatever we're trying to tell or, work with. But, like, in this case where traumatic stuff happens, too, like, it definitely helps us in that regard.
Yeah.
But, yeah, maybe your parents might have been abducted
They
on
might
their
be-
way to get dish soap.
Might be getting abducted on a routine basis, dude, because this is happening more frequently than comfortable.
Well, I'm sorry to bring it up here, Joaquin, but people who have been abducted before tend to have been abducted
again.
many, many times, either in their past or up to that point, they will be abducted later on.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Unless these abductions are great, like if you can abduct me and test me for like a short period of the time, and then the rest of the time give me something awesome to experience.
Well, people experience all sorts of different shit during these abduction scenarios, and we're going to actually go right into that so that we can kind of cut out the pieces, see what it is that happens to these four souls, because I definitely think that there's something going on here. There are too many reported incidents and cases for something not to be happening. I don't give a fuck if it's aliens. I don't care if it's like advanced sleep paralysis mixed with like delusions in your brain. I just know that this is happening to a lot of people, and it's difficult to explain. If we take a look at the numbers, early studies actually had estimated out the claims of abductees to be somewhere close to about 1,700. So that's a lot of people,
That is a lot. of
even if you're not looking at it on like a global scale. This is like a lot of reports coming in from the Americas and stuff like that, which a lot of this UFO and alien stuff is centered around. America's, especially since Roswell, we're fucking alien capital number one. What I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the fact that there's so many of these reports and that they seem to be sharing some similar stories, that, I mean, it tends to lend itself to be like it's sounding like evidence.
Yes, it's eerily similar. The narrative that goes through, which we'll kind of glaze over here in a bit, is very, very similar person to person. In some cases, some small details are off, and obviously when we kind of take a look into different theories, especially like the dimensional one, it would make sense. Like, your brain isn't going to process a higher dimension the same as a second person. But the fact that the same events and same things are happening to these people, despite like the small details that seem to be missing from their descriptions together, like the big details and the events are there.
Right. Yeah, and the fact that a lot of these stories are being shared by people that don't have a relationship before these events.
Right. Or in some cases, like when a lot of people are like, oh, you're just trying to do this for sensationalism, to point it out, especially with people who have experienced this, many of them go through, like you said, PTSD.
Yeah.
They show and exhibit symptoms the same as people who have gone through, traumatic experiences, and they have to reevaluate and change their lives, trying to understand what happened to them, just like people who might have a different post-traumatic experience in their, child's life. You have to go to therapy. You have to, come to terms with what happened to you in order to get some healing. But for some of these people, it's like there's never going to be a clear answer,
Yeah, I think it's hard to dismiss a lot of these cases because reporting it, I think it almost comes like as a detriment because you're looked at as like the loony of the society. So I don't know why anybody would come out with a story like this, knowing that the first response that the society is going to have is this person's nuts.
Yeah, they're going to instantly discredit you and whatever happened to you. Even if there is a logical explanation past aliens and stuff, you know, that's going to be the first thing that they point to. Taking a look into that and kind of harkening back, like what you were saying, people are afraid to bring it up because you might just be dismissed immediately. Out of that 1,700 estimated claims, newer studies have gone back, and with the unreported claims or unreported incidents after running these numbers, some people believe somewhere between 5 to 6% of the population have possibly experienced something along these lines. That's a lot.
That is a lot. That's we're talking about millions of people at this point.
Right. If not hundreds of thousands, you know what I mean? It's like something is happening to these people, and it's not really being addressed by the medical or the scientific community in a constructive way. Usually it's either explained away, or they throw it into the bucket with the rest of the crackpot UFO stuff.
Yeah, which goes back to what we were just saying, which is like, why would you bother to report it if it wasn't real? You know, because you're going to get ostracized to begin with.
Yeah.
Later on, maybe you'll be seen as like part of a group, and maybe you'll get some support there. But I think initially coming out, you know, I'd probably be scared to come out because I think I would be ostracized. It's a story where people are like, "No, that's nuts. That's crazy."
Yeah, what actually happened to you, you know? Right. But on top of that, like you were saying, that group, being a part of a group, that definitely bears some mentioning. Because if you take a look into people who are interested in aliens and UFOs, if we want to give them a good name that we can kind of identify several of them on, if they are interested in the study of these sorts of things, we'd lump them in under UFOologists. And if we take a look at these, you know, what kind of people are these? What sort of places do they go to or gather in? What sort of things do they do that set them apart as UFOologists and everything, not just crackpots, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of a bunch of people coming together to talk about UFOs or aliens, what's your first mental image?
Of people who would gather together, like specifically form a group
for UFOlogy.
I don't know, maybe people who would consider tinfoil hats.
Right.
People are just
Hawaiian shirts.
a little, who are out there a little bit.
You know, people coming in, older ladies on their rascal scooters, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
So this is where all your Social Security money has been going.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, kind of the detritus of society, kind of weirdos, the fringe. Well, interestingly enough, you'll find in some of these UFOlogy groups, not necessarily the case. You can actually find several scientists and different people who study sciences and topics along the same line in these groups, not only to kind of give it validity, but also to show that, like, the rest of them are really serious about this. They recognize it as something to be taken into account, studied, you know, expanded upon, and spoken about. And even though you might have some of these fringers, obviously, going into that, you also have to realize that from the capacity of the government or the capacity of some official group to do this, anything that we know or hear about is declassified and might be misinformation several years down the line anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can understand that. Like, government getting their hands into it and changing the narrative.
Exactly. So these people, almost like vigilantes, they're taken to the streets doing this stuff themselves. So I definitely say do not discount these UFOologists altogether. Maybe take a look into them, you know, piece by piece, different stuff, everything like that. There are even other sorts of organizations that have basically thrown their hat into the ring, so to speak. The one comes into mind there's a doctor who actually he removes or he gives consults to remove alien implants or what are assumed to be alien implants from people who believe they are abductees.
So are these, when you say alien implants, are we talking about something physical?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And there have been several of these actually popping up and everything.
That would be pretty scary.
Yeah.
Again, for some reason, every time I hear implant, my mind immediately goes to that whole Jason Bourne thing where he's cutting things out of his flesh and finding out different information and leads to what his identity is.
Yes. But it was, in this case, I mean, they seem to kind of pop up from people who are either experiencing similar PTSD symptoms or do believe themselves that they've already been abducted. But the biggest push and availability and support that we've seen from this is from a podiatrist from Thousand Oaks, California. His name was Dr. Roger Lear. He was the founder of FIRST, which is the Fund for Interactive Research and Space Technology, and he also cooperated and worked, I believe, with MUFON, which is like a UFO network, kind of mutual UFO network, or at least they've reported with him and worked with him on several occasions. Might be wrong on that, but he's basically like the granddaddy of fucking removing alien implants, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
pretty crazy. So
he went from like a little known podiatrist and like small surgeon to like basically being like fucking bling king of being like, hey, you got fucking alien implants? I'll remove that shit. I'm the fucking man. You know
so
what I
from
mean?
podiatrist to the go-to guy for alien implants.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know who else could claim that.
No, I mean, even if he's not actually removing alien implants or even if he's not involved with that or anything nowadays too far, like, he's fucking curbed the market on it. Like, that would be a very smart move if you were in that position.
So when he goes to the Podiatrists of America conference, or if that even exists, does he claim, like, yeah, I'm also the dude that removes alien implants? Can any of you guys claim that?
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure he probably comes in with like a bunch of chains and shit around his neck with like a flying saucer on the end and like
Crown
fucking gold teeth.
King podiatrist.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, motherfuckers. And they're like, you haven't just been doing podiatry, have you? He's like, no. I totally found this whole fucking different field of the market. Like, wait till you guys hear what I've been fucking doing.
And I'm the only dude doing it.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, and that obviously kind of... in a way, it shows the validity. It's like not a lot of people take this seriously, but he's removed several objects, and other doctors even have removed several objects upon patients' request who have been experiencing like, a lot of discomfort, or like they woke up one day and had weird fucking marks around an area. In some cases, they've taken and done surgery on these people, removed these objects. And in some cases, some of these objects have been encased, like, in skin. So, Joaquin, like, whenever you fucking get a wound or something like that and everything, and it heals up, everything on the inside is red, pink, right?
Right.
Complete flesh, etc.,
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a piece of skin grow inside of your skin?
Not that I know.
Have you ever had any wound like heal itself that way, where you have to again open it up later on and be like, oh, there's some extra skin in there, didn't grow back right?
No, that'd be almost like when reptiles, what's that?
When they molt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the weird thing.
Human molting, yeah.
Some of these implants that they've pulled out look like they've been encased, if not in like an artificial, maybe like grown around in skin, almost like, I don't know, to me, it makes me imagine the aliens just being like, fuck yeah. See, it looks just like the rest of the outside. They're not going to notice at all.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Or like, they think that they're disguising it?
Right, like it's an organic thing inside your body, but obviously from us who know, like,
that's
not
supposed
only
to be on the outside.
Yeah, we're like, what the fuck is not only this foreign, weird metal object is inside your body, but it has like a small encasing of skin around it, like, how did this happen? You know what I mean? Someone had to put it there. So I'm just saying that, like, either these people who are getting the implants removed are very, very successful in tricking us, or, I mean, alien beings or interdimensional beings are putting things inside of us, maybe to track us, maybe to monitor us.
That's what I was going to ask.
Kind of like a Fitbit.
Yes. they're trying to check our health, make sure that we're getting an adequate amount of steps per day.
Right.
Oh.
They're like, Carl has not reached the maximum amount of steps for the last 3 days.
Yeah.
What a terrible human.
And then there's an anal implant that electrocutes you if you don't meet your goal.
Right. There you go.
But yeah, that's kind of the question that I had is like, what are these implants doing? You were kind of getting to that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like we can only hazard a few guesses. Some of them, I guess, in reports have given out certain frequencies, like electronic and everything. Nothing that obviously like shoots back up into space or that we can track, but it's kind of weird. And then on top of that, other ones just appear to be like small metal discs or balls or like little tiny, just pieces of metal, almost like a chip. You know what I mean? But altogether, it's difficult to ascertain the reason for them when we don't even know exactly or can't, tell exactly where these things came from in the first place.
I wonder if it's if these are people who had been abducted, if it's just information that they collected on that person, so they don't have to store it in their main system. They'd store it on the person. The next time they visit that person, they just scan the implant or whatever.
Now that
all that data.
Yeah, that is a very good theory too, because in one of these stories, not only I was reading in some of the cases, but on this one podcast I was talking about it, they were saying like there was this one guy that later on he was abducted, and like the aliens were like puzzled trying to figure out like who he was and everything because he had an implant removed, and then like the guy was freaking out apparently after he was hypno-regressed, like. He was basically just fucking shouting at the aliens, like, "You fucking kidding me? Like, you've been taking me to how many times? Like, you know me. You know me." He's like, okay, let's get over this shit. It's like, you keep abducting me and taking me from my home and erasing my memory. Like, you give me the gall that you don't fucking know who I am. And it's like, well, maybe
put me in the books.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing. It's like, dude, you pulled out your chip. These guys can't tell you from any other human being.
Yeah, that's true.
But, like, this guy was just like, you don't fucking get me. You don't stick shit up my ass. Take me out of my warm bed at night and then fucking forget who I am.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean,
like it's a bad date.
Like,
or
what
something.
an impersonal, like, asshole thing for these aliens to do.
Right.
They're just like, nah, not really ringing a bell. And it's just like, you know how much shit you've done to me up till this point?
Yeah.
Like, you can't figure this shit out without a microchip.
I think I'd be kind of somewhat insulted as well if I had like gotten that rectal examination a few times.
You're just like, oh, that didn't happen because I was special? It's like, no.
Right.
We do this to everyone, Earthling. We'll drop you off at home. No kisses. So, let's go ahead, and since we were just talking about them, let's take a look at a couple of different, alien implant pictures here really quick so you can see how fucked up and freaky they are.
Yeah.
Alright, so to start with, I'm going to go ahead and show you what this is an object that was removed. After removal, it's about 10 times magnification and 20 times magnification, and it's going to show you the object inside of a tissue capsule, which, like we were talking about, shows the same biological qualities and like appearances like new skin, and then what it looks like when they pulled it out. Now, from this one, from what we're seeing and everything, it kind of just looks like a fucking rock. So, here, Joaquin.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it looks like a small, like, epidermis kind of around the outside, but it showed like the same...
Almost like a wonton or something.
Yeah, like a fucking, a pot sticker.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it apparently has kind of like the same qualities as skin. And then here's the actual object after it was removed from the tissue.
Okay. That's why you need it to be in tissue, because that looks like it'd be painful.
Yeah.
It's just...
And a lot of these people report pain anyway. Like, they had fucking something put inside of them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then here is another object that was removed. I'm not quite sure where from, but this is a example of the round object. Sometimes
Yeah, it looks
they
almost
find.
like a little pearl or
Yeah,
something.
just a small little metal ball. This is in comparison to a 7.5 lead shot,
Oh, okay.
like a ball that you would shoot with. And then here is the most probably well-known sort of implants, and they kind of look almost like fuses if you take a look at them.
Oh yeah, they do.
So that's about how big they are. Enough that you can fit several of these in the palm of your hand and everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the most common alien implant that people seem to find. And it almost looks like, I don't know, like there might be blood inside of it. Maybe
It's red.
Yeah, but it's interesting because they're finding these things. And these people themselves obviously aren't just inserting shit into their skin for fun.
Right.
And they go to these doctors if they can, if it's just not a regular doctor after they complain about, these problems. Some people obviously go onto the forums online and then check in, with that other doctor I was telling you about, the granddaddy. They're like, I think I've been implanted by aliens. And he'd be like, he'd give him a conference or whatever, and then help take it out. Apparently, even, he was doing pro bono work for it, too.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. So, are they finding that there are points of not injection but insertion?
Yes, actually, there's a lot of common places that people find alien implants. If you take a look into the analysis and everything here, give me just a second, they seem to crop up in similar locations, so on your body. One of them is back here by the ear, right before, not the lobe, but that little plate of cartilage right
Almost
here.
where your jaw is.
Yeah,
Okay.
right above your jawline and everything there. So that pops up. Another one that
I can
people
see how that'd be uncomfortable. There's not a whole lot of room there.
Yeah, a lot of people, they say that they've also noticed this kind of back and underneath behind the ear. People have noticed ones happening, if not on their back or near the back of their head. And then some people have noticed them in their knees or hands. And then several have noticed them kind of on the place near the heel or in the foot. So a lot of very similar places between all these people
Oh
that it keeps popping up. But that's the thing, is that they're in similar places on the body, frequently between all these other different cases. Some even appear the same. But yeah, it's really a toss-up as to what they're for. Some people think that it's some sort of telepresence or mind control, a way for them to communicate back to us, or for us to communicate up to them. Others think that it's tagging wild animals and shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering, if it is somehow a transmitter, and that'd be really interesting if they're somehow able to read our thoughts, or maybe even implant suggestions. You know what I mean? Almost have a hive mind based here on Earth, and then they can just broadcast whatever they want into our consciousness.
Well, that's kind of interesting, too. There's a lot of theories over, obviously, alien control over minds and shit, and our governments, and our Earth and planet and stuff. And on top of that, you also have these people who report after abduction cases and everything, acting kind of off. Not just the PTSD and everything, but they term it, let me see, I believe, what is it? They term it as theophany. which is a visible manifestation to humankind of God or a God or something divine. These people have a warm, bubbly, nice feeling after they've been abducted. They feel almost, protected or chosen by their abductors and everything. And that's something that a lot of people report afterwards. It's like, it didn't seem like I was being myself.
Yeah.
Up to the abduction, like the night before and everything, they have really bad anxiety. They almost feel compelled to be at a certain place or a certain time in some cases. And then after the abduction, they're like warm and bubbly, like, oh my God, I had this amazing, almost spiritual visit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
In response. And then, of course, later on, once they start coming down from this high, it's almost a high in a way, they start to have PTSD symptoms, issues with, like, remembering. A lot of people complain about being fucking completely exhausted after these spells and stuff. And it's like, maybe they're also adversely affecting us with chemicals or something when they're going through that. Or it could even be something like a psychic connection. When we're going to get into the narrative of these abductions, and I'm going to kind of explain what happens to most people and what could possibly be happening from the outside in. Okay.
That would be interesting. Like if what's happening is while the abduction is occurring, in order to not have as negative of an impact on the person that you're abducting, you being the alien, that you introduce some kind of chemical, basically give them this euphoric experience, almost like being high.
Right.
And then, of course, afterwards they come down and there's a crash.
Yeah, and you're like, what the fuck just happened to me?
Right.
I feel otherworldly. Like you got the fucking worst buzz in the galaxy at that point. And
Right.
then you now have the worst hangover in the galaxy.
Yeah, exactly.
A hangover that can only be felt in your ass.
Yeah, so you experience that intense high that's otherworldly. It's out of this planet. And then the crash from that has to be pretty extreme.
There you go. So, it's interesting kind of not only the feelings and the emotions that these people experience up to and after, but also what the implications of those might be, because are they artificial? Is this something that we feel ourselves anyway? How much do these aliens control not only during the abduction and after the abduction process, but in our world itself? It's an interesting and scary thought, for sure.
I wonder if that's what some of the anal probing is about. Because I know that there's been, like, I've had some exciting moments. I've taken a roller coaster ride or two, and it's made my butt pucker. So I don't know if that's how they sense how much excitement we've had out of the whole experience.
I'm glad that you brought up the anal probe again, Joaquin. That's never anything that I'm going to say again. But one person actually told me something kind of interesting and parallel to that. A friend of mine, she was saying that apparently people who like breed bulls and everything for farms, in order to get their juices for the whole
Bull
process,
juice, yeah.
to make the bull babies and inseminate the females and everything. Apparently, what they do is they take an electrical charged device and then they stimulate through their ass their prostate, which makes them manually ejaculate.
Yeah.
So, if you think of humans, in this case as livestock, that the aliens are basically harnessing and harvesting to make their army of fucking interdimensional or whatever hybrids in order to get that stuff, like a lot of these people have said in their abduction experiences, they had that release, but it wasn't necessarily a good feeling. They weren't like, you didn't bring me to that point. You just basically were like, okay, we're done. We'll take this stuff. That might be the case, is that these anal probes especially, they might be help in order to get the business done, just like a bull.
Yeah, so I want the juice.
Right.
So they
shock our prostates. So that might be an interesting theory to consider now that we know the.
So is it a different outcome? Like just as a side note, if you try to go through the prostrate to initiate the juice, does that mean that you don't get the feelings that you don't get?
Well, I'm not quite sure. That would make sense to me. If it's something that's like stimulated just by biology, you're not gonna have, the candles and like the warm music, the Barry Manilow, like you were saying before,
Or Lionel
like,
Richie or something.
Yeah, you're not gonna have all that stuff set up. Like, there's not that mood there. These
Right.
aliens aren't milking us with care. They're not,
But I'm still wondering if does it still release like the
endorphins and
Yeah.
everything. I don't know. I mean,
because if it does, then maybe that's the drug that's causing all this stuff where people are forgetting everything. I mean, if you're getting juiced that many times,
yeah, you're just
your
exhausted
brain
at
is
the point
probably
where oh yeah. Well, I mean,
your brain could be scrambled from that by the time you get back, and you just be like, "What just happened?"
right?
I know it was awesome.
Yeah, it's like, man, does my ass prostate hurt? But I don't know. In this case, like I was saying, a lot of abductees claim that they experienced that discharge, but without any pleasure leading up to or from it. They're just like, oh, you took my Siemens. It's like, okay, I guess we're doing that. But yeah, it's really interesting. Going into the actual narrative itself, like we were saying, these people share, especially out of these details, large events or details throughout the narrative of typical abductions that either match up too closely or, the reports are too close to each other to just be, random happenstance or a person's
There's
just...
too much of a shared experience.
Exactly, yes. That's the
For
case.
it to be coincidence.
Exactly. Agreed. So it all starts and everything with the capture, the abduction itself. Most of these people, obviously, they're just fucking laying in bed, doing the usual nightly business, whatever. But several of them, many of them, report weird kind of like premonitions, like feelings, emotions before the abduction. They say it's like a compulsion to be like at a specific place, at a specific time, or to have like this expectation that something like that they have experienced before but is still unknown is about to happen. So they kind of almost get like, when there's about to be a fucking thunderstorm or something happen, you almost get like that electric, that charge in you. That's kind of what they're saying. It's like, something's about to happen, I don't know what. For these people that have had like problems with abductions before, and maybe even these implants, that might be them tracking them down, or it could just be, your brain being like, oh shit, it's gonna happen again. And the rest of you is like, I don't remember a thing, but okay. And then fucking you're like, oh shit, the aliens are coming for me again, on maybe some subconscious level, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And how much of what you learned about were like the scenario where people were at home in their beds or whatever, and how many scenarios are there where it's that whole fire in the sky type thing?
It's really divided. I mean, there's a good deal of people who are taken from their beds, especially if they are in rural locations. Several other people experience abductions where, yeah, they're like driving down the road, they experience a UFO, they lose hours of time, they wind up, they're like still driving further down the road, and they're like, oh, what just happened? You know what I mean?
So now you got me scared.
Yeah,
because I spend almost every night in my bed, where I'm never thinking about being abducted.
Yeah, like, I constantly think of this, Joaquin. That's why abductions are so fucking scary.
I've taken that scary walk in the woods where I'm like, I hope I don't get abducted, but it's kind of my fault. I'm in the woods in the middle of the night. But I've never had the thought of getting into my warm bed, putting the covers over me, and closing my eyes thinking that night could be the night.
Well, you got some warning signs here, Joaquin.
I mean, I thought they were more polite than that. They're actually taking us from
they don't give a fuck, Joaquin. Like, especially in this case, I mean, like, if you take a look in between the cases, it seems more and more and more like we're just livestock, or at least animals on a lower level of consciousness than these beings, because they'll just take us. That's the thing. It's like why it's so scary, because it's just abduction and implantation and experimentation without consent.
Yeah, that is scary.
I mean,
Now that I know that they're coming after us in our homes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would give it to them if I'm out 3 o'clock in the morning by myself in the woods. I probably shouldn't have been there. That's my anus.
there you go. That's my anus.
But yeah, in my bed, that's my anus.
They will come for you.
You don't have any claim to that anus. Like,
Well, the good news here, like I said, is you do have some warning signs. There's like that sense of, something's going to happen that's already happened before, but I don't know. On top of that, many abductees also say that they get like fucking just massive anxiety, huge panic attacks and everything, where they don't even know what it's from. They're like, fuck, I am super stressed. Something's fucking going to happen, something bad, And then apparently that can even last up to several days before the abduction actually takes place. Or it could be completely absent. But hopefully, in your case, Joaquin, if you get abducted, you're going to be tripping out for a couple days. I'm going to be like, Joaquin, you might be abducted anytime soon.
Right.
So get your shit together.
let's hope I get some warning, yeah.
Well, not that you're going to be able to do anything. I just want to let you know.
That's true.
So, after all that shit goes on and everything, apparently, eventually at some point, the abductees will go under like this shift into an altered state of consciousness. Which, if you remember with the Hynek scale and the extensions of the Hynek scale for the Close Encounters, Vallée said that one of those, close encounter points is when you reach that shift of consciousness. So this is when you go from a close encounter of just, you're already bumping up to fucking number 4, like immediately. At this point,
You're on the accelerated track.
exactly. This is like the transition or the threshold from like normal shit to what's called a state of limited self-willed mobility. Essentially, for a lot of these people, apparently they it almost doesn't feel like they're in control of their body. Like they're in a dream. They can kind of direct themselves to do this and that, but it's almost like they're in a hazy sort of like subconsciousness, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so you're in a highly suggestive state. Like, maybe not to the point where somebody could convince you to kill yourself, but they could possibly convince you to do some things that you wouldn't normally do.
Perfect, yes. A lot like kind of sort of hypnosis
Yeah.
of sorts. And it's in this state that people say that they can also, in some cases, experience complete sleep paralysis. Other people say that they experience paralysis aided after being visited by the visitors by, like, say, an instrument. Many people liken it to a wand or a pole or a rod of some sort that the aliens have apparently, like, they either touch you with, point at you, or something like that. And if a light isn't present, something similar, and then your body just fucking locks up. Like you have no control of anything at that point. Other people have reported these aliens, and this is in conjunction with some of those implants, sticking shit in their ears, and then some people have reported having like blood and everything on their pillow afterwards. But it's during this state of altered consciousness that they start the abduction process. The Greys waddle into your room, you're trying to register them and shit like that, stuff like that. And it's believed that they use these technologies, something similar, to calm us down. Because obviously, if you have a bunch of fucking 3-foot-tall, gray, giant-eyed midgets from another reality or space wandering into your room at, say, like 3 o'clock at night, pre-heralded by a bath of blue light coming through the window, you're probably going to be freaking out a little bit, right?
Yeah, I can understand that. I wonder if they somehow overlay what you're presently experiencing with like a past, like a really calming experience, and so your brain's trying to figure out which feeling to go with,
Right.
and maybe that like puts us in that suggestive state where we're in an area where we'd normally panic, but because we also have some of this good, like comforting feelings flowing through us, then we're like, yeah, fine, I'll go with it. What do you want me to do?
Well, apparently a lot of these abductees, they say, they either walk or are floated or levitated into the alien ship or craft or doorway, whatever theory you want to go off of here. They go in, apparently in many cases, they say they're going either through solid objects such as walls, ceilings, or closed windows. They also say they might have experienced rising through like a shaft or like a tunnel or along like a beam of light. They're being brought from one location into the ship, not necessarily by the aliens themselves, but of their own volition in this, suggestive state, like we're saying. And they go, a lot of this weird reports of high strangeness, like going through fucking objects that are solid, or, not walking out through the window and like floating into a beam or anything into the sky, but it seems to be almost like transporting these people in some cases, which this is what makes the dimensional theory so plausible for me, is that if they have these technologies or these abilities to, either find us or whatever, some things are obviously going to collide. We're going to have interference and everything from other physical objects in the way and stuff. But if with their technology, if it is interdimensional or anything, they can pull us through solid, third dimensional objects or whatever into a certain state, and we wouldn't have to worry about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, if they could somehow like, I don't know how you'd explain that. I'm not a scientist, but if somehow they could break us down molecularly
right.
and just like, I don't know what the word is, just to like allow us to go through solid material.
Right.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. So even if that's not the case and that we're experiencing something else in between, it's still interesting to note that it happens with a lot of people. So after this, of course, we had the people on the ship. A lot of people either explain that the rooms that they're first in are either dirty, odd-smelling, sometimes with a sense of cinnamon or kind of a lemony scent kind of pervading all about. This might even just be kind of like the natural biological, kind of smell or stink of these creatures. We don't know. But they arrive in this room. Sometimes they're by themselves. Sometimes they're with other aliens. Sometimes they're with other abductees. And I wanted to mention in this case, many people report seeing members of the army or military with them there. If they're not like fully conscious and aware, then they are also in a state where it seems like they have been abducted themselves. So like, if you believe those theories of like the president like signing a treaty with the Greys saying, hey, you can take however many that you want and then we get technology in exchange, if you think about it, it would explain the presence of all these military people, is if they're not cohabitating or working with these aliens, maybe they're part of that, cattle group. Maybe they're a part of those people that are like, hey, these people in the army and shit, they basically are owned by the government and everything.
So they're
Let the
being
aliens
experimented
take
on.
Yeah. So that's a fucking crazy, scary fucking thing to think about.
Yeah,
sure.
That is for certain. Especially like these are the people that are supposed to protect us, but at the same time, like, I also feel like if our government is working in association with the aliens, then I don't know. I don't have anything against the military, but these are enlisted people, so they signed up for whatever the military says they're going to, or whatever the government says they're going to do.
Right.
Or with your private citizen, we're funding the government. We're the taxpayers. Like, don't offer violence.
Right. Yeah. It's like at least throw the privates up there to get their privates. It's like, not me.
Maybe that's why they were called privates.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, it seems like there's a big trend of seeing people who are in the military, associated with the military, in military garb and everything during these abduction experiences, either in the same role as the abductee, or in some cases they're kind of seen in the background during like the goings on of some of this shit.
Like it's like a mutual thing.
Yeah, almost like they're in the same program or something like that.
Right.
Which would be fucking even scarier if like the military was aware to some extent. Not only are they being like, yeah, keep taking our civilians, but they're like, oh, Private Gomez over here, he's not been doing too good in PT. Let's just have him as part of the alien project, you know?
Yeah, he's got an anus.
Right, yeah. Fucking ridiculous. So after this, of course, they eventually get led into an exam room, and then many people talk about the initial examinations. Many times these are performed by the smaller Greys, and they go over areas of interest that appear to be like the cranium, the central nervous system, the skin, the outside of the skin, the state of your skin, and of course the reproductive system, and in some cases also the joints. Several of these places, like near and around the cranium, near several things that have relation to your nerves and your nervous system, we see implants.
Like the glands and stuff?
Exactly. On top of that, we also see the joints, like down in the heel and everything, where they put some of the implants. It seems interesting that they kind of pay attention to this as well. So they also seem to, people have noticed on repeat examinations where a person's been abducted again, they're often surprised or talk excitedly with one another, or are interested in any changes to that person since the last time that they were abducted. So like if, say, a guy like broke his foot or had like a digit or something like amputated since the last time that the aliens abducted him, they're like, oh, holy shit, what happened here? Like, what?
Right.
You know, it's interesting to them. So I'm wondering how much of it is pure like scientific fascination, and then how much of it has to do with whatever their agenda might be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I would have to think like, you know, I know people like piercings and everything, but I'm going to go in on this. Like, what do the aliens think when they bring a younger guy up, juice him, you know, get his semens, and then they put him back down? Like he hasn't had any ink done to him. He's not pierced. He's not modified in any way. And then the next time they come around, he's got like a Prince Albert or something. Are they thinking like,
did you guys implant this? And they're like, no, that's not one of ours.
Right.
They're like,
we wouldn't have done this to him. Like,
which aliens put this in here? They're like, this is really shabby work. Half of it's still sticking out.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
I'm not sure. It seems like they really have a lot of emphasis, like, on the reproduction biology, obviously, and then also into that kind of just general, external, and like internal systems, especially with like the skin and like the flesh and stuff, especially around the areas that they seem to do the implants with. So
That makes sense.
I haven't read, and maybe it just might be from like the dwindling reports of abduction that seem to kind of be happening in recent years. Maybe aliens haven't really caught up with the times, or maybe they don't care.
I wonder what they have thought over the times, because, you know, you think about the past, and like you think about like pirates, for instance. Pirates tended to have like earrings and tattoos or whatever. They were the rebels at that time,
Right.
and now that's much more commonplace. And so I wonder what they think of like our own body modifications and how we do it. Do they ever abduct those tribes in Africa or whatever that extend their necks?
Oh, yeah. And they're like, wow, look at all these rings. You remove them, and they're like, oh, God, he can't support his own neck anymore.
Right.
Just like, fuck. I don't know. It would be
You know-
really interesting to get some information back from Dr. A. Leon.
Right. It would be nice to have like a discussion with an alien.
Yeah.
Who's doing
I think that would definitely clear up a lot more things. For
Right.
sure.
Like if you could ask us, like, why are you guys doing this to yourself?
So we don't have internet speculation.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that point where they've gone over the initial examination, which in some cases people say are headed up or run or directed by taller alien beings. Many cases look just like the Greys. They're just very much taller, and they seem to have larger, expressive eyes. The reason for this being is a psychic link. In many cases, people, especially abductees, coming in to be examined, etc., once they're released from kind of that smooth, hyper-suggestive state like we were talking about, what's the first thing you're going to do when you're freaking out? Just fucking scream.
Right.
So several of these people, especially in the hypnosis regressions where they're like experiencing this, instead of giving words to it and being like describing it, they'll just fucking start screaming their head off like they're freaking the fuck out. Because like they're literally reliving, the shit like they couldn't barely comprehend when it was happening anyway.
Right.
So,
But they're reliving it not like it's a secondary experience, but like it's going back to the first.
like it's going back to it again. Yeah. So just like in the first time where they had to go and deal with this, and every time that your brain has to recomprehend and like understand what the fuck is going on with you, it's just like, it's just like, and the aliens, of course, are like, calm down, we're your friends, we're doing this to help you, or some of them even are like point blank, you've done this before.
Right.
You know what happens here. When people ask them, like, what are you doing to me? Why am I here? And they're like, And it's like, even if you don't know, they're kind of harking back to the fact that this happened before. Sit back,
Yeah.
relax.
You survived it the other
Yeah,
times.
It'll be done and over
Right.
soon. And then the big guy, what some people refer to as the taller or the tall ones, the bigger alien, seems to have kind of almost psychic or hypnotic suggestion kind of ability. In some cases, this taller one is used to calm people down. People have mentioned over several different cases being subjected or brought before this taller alien and then looking into his really large pool-like eyes and either being calmed or feel like a wave of empathy or a wave of like good calming feelings is being produced out of them, almost like a hypnotic or psychic suggestion. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm wondering, since they said that these aliens, although they have different stature, different height, they look similar to one another?
Yeah, the tall one and the Greys, from what I've experienced or read through, are very close to each other, if not, the same kind of species. But there's obviously something that sets the tall one apart, not just from these kind of calming or psychic abilities, but also kind of like his demeanor with the Greys. He seems to be the examiner, the doctor. He has a whole lot less, like, care, it seems, for anything that isn't, like, the actual procedure. The other ones are kind of like assistants, kind of running around doing their thing, doing what they can to help or make sure that the examination happens. But he's the guy that seems to be in charge. And this happens over several different abduction scenarios, which, if we ever get to interview an abductee or a potential abductee, I think we'll find much the same thing, that they describe being stared at or, brought before, if not a bigger alien, one of the other Greys or something like that, and explaining this sense of just calmness, like they're calming them down to prepare them for the rest of the procedures and examination.
That's almost like they can maybe manipulate us telepathically.
Exactly, which is why it's so fucking scary.
It's scary, but at this point, all we know that they're doing is they're putting relaxing emotions into us. Later on, it may become something disastrous, but for now,
we're feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Thanks, tall alien.
And I'm wondering, like, if because there's like a similarity in the way that they look, if it's not just like different stages, like different, even here on Earth, different animals mature differently. Like you look at the caterpillar and the butterfly.
Right.
So I'm wondering if these smaller aliens are like the first stage of what becomes
The
this.
taller ones
Yeah.
and everything. Maybe these taller ones could even be, advanced or higher caste in their society. It's
Yeah, that's true.
difficult, really, to tell. But past the typical examination, making sure that your stuff works and that we got implants in the right place and that you don't have any missing digits that we don't know about. there are other sorts of procedures that some of these abductees are put through. Many of these are what researchers refer to as imaging, envisioning, staging, testing. Imaging is when an abductee is either made to view screens displaying images and scenes, or where these sorts of scenes are almost psychically impressed, oftentimes by the tall one, into their mind to almost seem to provoke or gauge certain emotional responses. In that case and everything, a lot of these seem to be like good images, things that calm you down, things that make you, feel okay, shit like that, your family. And then in some cases, many of them are given a very distressing image, like the world blowing up, or just calamity happening. And it's almost like the aliens, in some of the suggestions and like the mental messages that these people get, in many times and cases, it's almost like the aliens themselves are saying, hey, this is what's might happen in the future. This is why we're doing all this crazy shit and everything to you now, is to prevent something like this from happening.
Okay.
So, in some cases, these people are almost made to believe, like, hey, these guys are the helpers. Even if they're doing weird scientific shit to me, even if they kidnap me from my bed or the road in the middle of the night, this is all for the greater good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm fucking saving the world from blowing up.
Right. I guess I could kind of see that. Like, they're trying to, I guess, prepare us
Right.
before they encounter us.
Right.
So they take us up one by one, do whatever they do to us,
Right.
and then see what comes of it.
But, Joaquin, do you think that might be the case? Even with varying images and everything between these certain people, it seems like they're always shown like this calamity or disaster that could happen if they weren't already going through the procedures to prevent it. Is that really the case, Joaquin? Are our best interests in mind of these aliens, or is this their own way of like kind of smoothing it over just like the rest of it and being like, hey, calm down, dude, like stop freaking out. We're going to get the rest of this stuff done, get you back to your planet, you're not going to remember. But remember, right now, this is all for the good cause. We're keeping Earth from blowing up or whatever happening. And we're just like, okay, cool. At least you're doing this for a reason. Like,
So it's just like master manipulation.
super master manipulation, yeah. So, I mean, that's just what I would feel. I don't think these fuckers are straightforward, to be honest. Any guy that pulls you out of your bed in the middle of the night, sticks something up your ass, steals your Siemens, and then fucking, puts on almost like this play or whatever to get you to calm down and be like, okay, well, maybe it wasn't that bad, and then sticks you back into place and wipes your fucking memory, not my friend. Like, maybe if they didn't wipe our memories and we were like, oh shit, you remember when all that stuff happened? But hey, we're saving the world, no big deal. It seems almost like it's placate, like, appease us or
Right.
Calm us down at the time until they can go through the rest of the shit and then fucking snip the cord that connects our brain to alien rape time, Like, it just doesn't seem like a friendly course of action or what a person would do if, they weren't just fucking lying through their teeth at you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, they are the power in this scenario, and you always want to speak truth to power. So maybe maybe they are just manipulating us, like I said.
And blowing
mean,
smoke up our ass.
Yeah, if they're that high of an intelligence, then they'd be able to manipulate us in ways that we never conceive of.
Yeah, and I mean, if you take a look into this, like some of the high strangeness that happens with other UFO or alien encounter reports, you see several of the people being like talking to the aliens, be like, "Oh my God, where are you from?" And they're like, "Oh, we're from Mars." In some cases, one person has spoken to UFOs back in the day, and they were like, "Oh, we're from like around the Nebraska area." And it's like almost like they're like lying to us to like get that shit out of the way and be like, here's an explanation for you. And we're like, I'm going to accept this explanation because I don't fucking know what else to accept. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
It's
it's nothing we're prepared to deal with.
Right. If they are telling us the truth and it's in a weird, roundabout way, either, you know, that we don't understand or that they're doing it to, like, just temporarily be like, okay, so here's your answer for now. Next time we visit, either I'm going to give you a different answer or I'm going to be like, you know, we've already talked about this.
Right.
Like, oh, yeah, okay. Thanks, alien.
Like you said, to placate us.
Yeah. So in addition to those, the imaging and envisioning procedures, where either the imaging is like flashes of screens and images, like through electronics possibly. Envisioning is like the psychic projections in the mind. They also have staging, apparently, where the abductee plays like a role almost in like a play or something, and then some of the other aliens like take on the roles, but like in our mind, in some way, they might be manipulating us psychically or just like genetically somehow, to where other grays they've reported kind of take on the human roles of people in this play. It's almost like dramas that the aliens are staging, either to watch how we react and act, or to kind of like go through what a normal person would do. Almost like they're studying our social situations, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then on top of this staging, the last thing that they do, in some cases, outside of the normal examination and scientific shit, is the testing. Testing, in many cases, is when they put an abductee in front of a complicated electronic device of some sort, and they tell them to run it, to fucking, you know, do whatever.
Like
Usually
putting a mouse in a
people,
maze or something.
yeah, and usually
Like, give
people
you
are
a
like,
problem, you got to figure it out.
exactly, and usually the people are like completely confused. They're like, I don't know how to fucking operate this.
Right.
Like, I'm not fucking alien, I didn't make this and everything. But when they actually start to do it and everything, they find that they actually do know how to operate these machines or machinery or whatever. Like if they've had prior experience, or if they're like the mouse in the maze, like you were saying, and they've already gone through the maze. They're like, oh yeah, okay, so muscle memory and all of that comes back.
Right.
And for what reason this might be, again, fucking completely questionable. Who knows what these assholes are doing, you know? But the other sort of elements that kind of happen in the narrative of our alien abduction happen is presentation of children. These hybrid children, in some cases, often when like a woman especially is abducted, they bring back these children to them and they're like, hey, hold these children, give them, you know, love and warmth. And like some people have hypothesized on some areas is like, just like human children, you know, they need to be close to that nurturing mother-like aspect and everything. If they're incubating these things in a bunch of vats and chambers and shit, they almost seem to need the birth mother to give sort of that affection to the baby, like it's some sort of like fundamental part of their growth. So a lot of people who have been abducted prior and had this examination or their stuff taken from them, they also report later on being abducted again and then being presented with this hybrid child of theirs.
Oh my gosh.
That was made during
Dude,
the
it's
process.
like Interstellar Maury Povich.
Exactly. They're like, you're the father. And then you're like, well, there's nowhere I can go. That baby obviously looks like me. Still kind of alien-y, but
Right.
But everyone seems to kind of notice and recognize that it's their child, it seems like. But they're given the child and time with the child almost like a certain bonding before they're pulled apart again. And I don't know. Maybe it's something weird in that biological process, like I said, that these hybrid children, even though they were born scientifically or put in a test tube or vat, whatever, like they still need that closeness with the mother or something to develop right. Who knows? But that's a common occurrence that keeps cropping up and happening with these abduction experiences too.
I wonder if they're just introducing more of their like DNA into our gene pool.
Yeah, just slowly breeding us out.
Yeah.
It's speculation for sure. So.
or get us to a point where we're so similar to them that they're like, okay, well, now we can just bring all of our ships in and we'll be accepted because they'll see that we're pretty much the same at this point.
Right. Yeah. And they're just like, oh, hey, I'm like 75% alien. And they're like, nice.
Yeah.
Like, we're cool now. Maybe. But apparently, after, several people have just complete disregard, uncaring, like, cold feelings from these aliens and shit towards the abductees during their whole time there, some of them say that they will almost drastically change their behavior completely, like flipping a coin, and then all of a sudden just be like, hey, want to fucking tour the ship? Or they'll, like, conference with us, almost like speaking when we have questions, like, what the fuck, who are you? Like, why are you doing this? Apparently, some of them will come back and then start talking with us. Now, inside of that, we talk a lot about things and discuss with these alien beings, apparently, things that are relevant to the abduction phenomenon occasionally. We talk about it, kind of explaining what's happening. But the weird thing with it, kind of like I told you with, like, people who have experienced aliens before, in some cases, like, these answers that we get are either cryptic, completely non-sensory, or we can tell, like, they're almost like flat-out lies. And, I mean, it's like when they're explaining to these people where they just say, hey, no, you know what we're doing here. We've done this several times before. But their agenda many times is saying, like, we're doing this to save Earth, or we're doing this for the betterment of humankind, or whatever like that. And it's like, that's almost like the catch-all that they seem to give. It's like, this is for
your own good.
Yeah.
For your own good, yeah.
Yeah. And then we're like, okay, thanks, bud.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I'm doing you a favor over here.
I mean, a lot of these people and everything, they even sometimes report, like, orbiting around Earth or seeing other planets. Sometimes they even see other abductees or anything who are, like, subjected to extensive probing and medical testing. So, like, they'll be, like, open an exam room, and there'll be Johnny in the exam room just getting fucking rammed by a giant, like, probing machine. They'd be like, so this is exam room C? And it's like, oh, okay. And the guy's like, oh my god, like, help me! Like, you're like, I can't. So, shit like that. And then eventually, after all of this shit, and, like, occasionally, like, the tour and everything of the ship, which is always, it seems like each of these don't seem to match up. Like, almost like they're given a show, or a drama, or a play, just like the previous, thing, but almost from the aliens to the person. Like, they're giving us either bits of truth mixed with misinformation, or they're just lying bold out to us, or trying to give us something that's going to placate us, like you were saying before.
Yeah, or like what you said, you know what's going on.
Exactly. And we're like,
Don't play stupid here.
it's like, thanks, I really appreciate that.
The whole idea of, like, the sooner we get through with this, the sooner it's over,
Exactly.
That's what the doctor
is going to stop her.
Yeah, that's what the doctor always says, right, before they poke you with the needle.
Exactly. So, with all of that done and over with, eventually, of course, they return the person who's abducted.
Okay.
In some cases, they just go missing forever, off in space or dimension somewhere, whatever. But most times, the people who are taken, as far as we know at least, are returned. That's the thing, is, like, a lot of people don't remember exactly what happened. Some abductees only realize that they've experienced missing time upon, like, checking their clock or anything like that. Some people have just windows of hours missing from their life that they have no way of explaining. And the scary thing, especially for me with this abduction stuff, it's not that all of this stuff is happening to you, especially, like, against your will. It's the fact that something like all of this can happen, a whole experience like that, happen multiple times throughout your life, and you can be completely fucking oblivious of it. You know what I mean? Like maybe one day, like you turn around to your girlfriend or like friend or friends of the family or something, and just be like, "Hey, I'm really sorry for being late to the barbecue that one day. Like I tried to go up this road, and then all of a sudden we ran into construction, and then like all of a sudden they like,
we didn't have a barbecue.
yeah, they like contradict. They're like, we didn't have a barbecue
Yeah.
back on Saturday. Also, there's no construction out there. Like you could check the road report or whatever, and then like that almost makes you feel like, oh shit, like what was happening? And that's the strange thing, especially about these screen memories. Is like some of them are so, even if they seem off or whatever to the bigger picture, some of them like our minds we believe so, absolutely that it's not a question. Like we just go throughout the rest of our day and everything. So it's like, how many people are fucking abducted by aliens that don't even know it?
That'd be crazy because I haven't had that conversation, but it'd be weird. Like it'd be like if you came up to me and be like, "Remember that fight that we had back in the 5th grade?" And I'd be like, "Dude, I'm more than a decade older than you. We weren't in the 5th grade at the
Right.
same time."
And all of a sudden, like trying to match up those facts and be like, oh yeah, like what the fuck? Why am I thinking that? You know what I mean? It's like, who knows?
Yeah, and then you have like some kind of snap episode where you have to figure out what happened with that time. Like, how do you have such a good memory about us having an argument in the 5th grade?
Exactly, something that's like spot on. And a lot of these people kind of say the same thing too. It's like fucking crystal clear. Like
Right.
I can remember.
Like
right
that's
back
my
to
most
it.
crisp memory of all time.
Yeah, and they're just like, well, that memory isn't real. Like, fuck, what is real?
Right.
You know? But another interesting thing with these people who are returned and stuff is it's almost like a mistake made by the aliens. They never return them like to the same spot that they were taken from. Usually, this can be like if you were in your bedroom, they'll like return you into the kitchen. You'll wake up like in your pajamas in the fucking kitchen in the morning and be like, "What the fuck?" Or in some cases with people who have been taken, like the Fire in the Sky, the Travis Walton guy,
Mhm.
he was, I believe, I might be getting the numbers off because I've read so many different things, but I think he was like 60 miles or something like north, like 2 towns over from like the town that they were just outside of, like when they were logging, and he was completely naked, completely like fucked up, like I don't even know what the fuck happened to me. And then it started coming back to him slowly and stuff. Like that scene when they first start getting into the abductions, he's sitting underneath the table and the syrup is like dripping on him and he starts freaking out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's obviously like phased. Not only was he like returned like in the middle of nowhere, 60 miles from where he's picked up in the first place, completely naked, like eventually his mind was putting it all back together. But it seems like that's a common occurrence. If these people aren't like returned back like way far away from where they came from in the first place, it never seems like the aliens get it exactly right. Or at least, in some cases even, another almost amusing kind of problem that they have is putting on people's like clothes right. Like sometimes people will like walk up or wake up from abductions and like their fucking pajamas will be on backwards or like inside or out, or like one leg will be like rolled up all weird and shit. And then apparently like this one abduction that had happened in a hotel, the aliens, when the person was like woke back up in their bed and everything, like it was a pad or something like that, like one of those pads that you lay down in a sleeping bag or something like that.
Mhm.
They had just like put that over like the person almost like a blanket. Like they didn't know how to work like a blanket, and they were like, where does this go? Like, here, this looks about right. It's almost comically like they're like, okay, so everything's back in place.
Yeah.
It's like not
This
necessarily
is picture
the case.
perfect, right?
Yeah, you're like, couldn't figure out the pajamas, like, you left me in the fucking kitchen, like, fucking just stupid, wacky shit like that. So, it's interesting that apparently aliens can't fucking figure out how to process normal buttons and shit.
Yeah.
So, and then shortly after, there's some sort of like,
The aliens need to get online. We're on the internet. Check
Dude,
us out.
For real. Like, it would save them so much.
It was.
And they would even be able to find out that we have sperm banks. Not a problem. So shortly after the abduction happens and everything, later on down the line, just like with Travis Walton, there's some sort of realization event. Often like some sort of single memorable experience or like something that happens that like triggers us and then unlocks at least, if not all, some of those memories that start coming flooding back, gives us PTSD, etc. And that's when they start to be like, something fucking happened to me, you know.
Right.
Like, you might wake up one day, your pajamas are on backwards, you have a weird sore, like, on your elbow or something that's kind of, you know, painful, like maybe you dinged it on a table. You're like, man, I feel really fucking tired. I must have just, like, slept really weird, like, my fucking pajamas are on backwards, like, something weird happened, but whatever, put it in the past. Several days later, there's going to be a part where, almost like an acid flashback, you're just like, whoa, you know, like, fuck,
Yeah.
what happened to me?
And all the memories come flooding in.
Yeah, if not all of them, then at least enough that you're going to probably seek out medical attention or psychological attention and be like, I can't handle life anymore all of a sudden because some weird shit happened to me. And then that's when people usually come to and speak with people who do hypno-regression therapy and everything. The leading head of the fields and who actually happens to share my namesake, a man named Bud Hopkins, was the head of the field for a long time, especially with abductees. I think he interviewed and had regressed, or at least participated, or had taken a look into the study of over like 600 different people in regressions and cases. So
That had to do with abduction.
yeah, so there's a lot of numbers and everything over it. But to kind of rewind just a little bit here,
Was
back,
he finding anything tied in with what triggered some of the repressed memories to come back?
in that case, it's almost randomized too, kind
It
of
is,
like
okay.
with the Walton thing. Like I said, all of a sudden he was like sitting there and he had like syrup like drizzling on him, and it made him flash back to when he was like in those weird like slimy cocoons and stuff. Just stuff like that, maybe something that someone says or like something that you catch out of the corner of your eye that almost brings up another memory. Almost like for us, like if you smell a certain smell,
Right.
there's going to be a nostalgia or a memory
Yeah,
usually behind it.
I have stuff like that. Like I can kind of remember what my grandfather smelled like. He always wore the same cologne and stuff like that.
Yeah. So something like that, but instead of remembering your old pops, you're remembering that, you know, some
That
ray was
abduction.
like knuckle deep in you for hours. So
Right.
definitely.
But it's not like anything specific. Like everybody snapped out and all the memories came back whenever Careless Whisper was played on the radio.
Yeah, no, nothing like that.
Okay.
That'd be interesting. That would just be like, what links Careless Whisper to all these abductions?
Right.
But
Oh, now I'm thinking that that's what they're playing as their profile.
oh god, so bad. But to kind of jump back away from, you know, after we were, or to go a little bit further after being returned and then having like that fucking, you know, snapping moment.
Mhm.
Somewhere in between there is that theophany that we were talking about. Especially upon like their immediate return, abductees, they have like this high, this sense of love that people say are similar to what might be induced by drugs or like a mystical experience or something like that. It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome of a sort.
That's what I was going to say. I wonder if it like somehow helps to create that connection with the universe or something.
Yeah,
Like some kind of feeling like that. A feeling of belonging or something.
yeah. And it's interesting
Or
that
purpose.
a lot of people too, after this point, especially like they report that how they view the world, either religiously or spiritually, it's completely smashed to bits or changed entirely. And if you have an experience like this, where you're experiencing multi or extra-dimensional beings or extraterrestrial beings, it obviously like fucking blows everything that we've been taught and told for the most part, from previous like religions and dogma, completely out of the fucking water.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because then we're factoring in the fact that there's other beings other than humans that exist in the universe or in some other universe, and that they are a big part of our life and our history. Like we were saying before, if you take a look back into the ancient alien stuff, obviously a lot of that's been debunked, but the stuff that still holds, plus other things like fairy tales, like what they told in Scotland and Ireland and Britain, like the world of the fairies and interactions between people and fairies and elves and folk and everything like that. What if these are just different ways that we ourselves as human beings have tried to explain this abduction and coexisting, or at least presence of alien beings throughout our history as humans? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. So instead of referring to them as aliens, because we hadn't come up with that idea yet,
we
referred
weren't
to them as fairies.
scientifically to
Right.
the point where we were like, oh, this could be created by creatures that have otherworldly technology.
Yeah, instead of them being organic creatures, they're mythical creatures. They're,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stuff that we would believe in back then, you know what
Right.
I mean? And then during the dawn of time as human beings and everything, we would view them as gods, you know?
Oh yeah,
So,
certainly.
yeah, maybe that myth and mythos has changed throughout, you know, time. And maybe in this case, even with the reduction of abduction sightings and everything, it's kind of the same thing. Maybe this is happening to people, but in different ways with different details, because we're viewing these alien beings as something different. Like, it wasn't until around the time of the space race and everything, we started hearkening these lights in the sky and UFOs and abduction cases to a scientifically advanced race, because we weren't a culture that valued or understood science or anything like that up until that point, when we were obsessed with it.
Right.
Whereas before, like if we harken back to the days of the fairies and stuff, we were obsessed with magic or with, you know, escaping from our typical peasant lives on the farm and shit. Like, we were interested in what could possibly be mythical creatures from another realm or another world that live forever and shit like that.
Yeah.
That's how we might have explained it, because that was part of our myths and legends at the time. And then once you get up to Roswell in that time, we're all worried about the space race and shit. We're like, this shit is happening to us. How can we possibly explain this? Spaceships. There we go. These people are from space. They might even be from a fucking dimension. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
That's something definitely to consider. But that theosophany, like we were saying, definitely plays a big part in the positive emotions that we get about these beings. It also explains why in some cases people won't report or say anything about it. Or in some cases, like Whitley Strieber, you'll write stories about all the great things that these aliens could possibly do for us, or that we might be doing with them, because you believe the shit that they told you when they had something shoved up your ass and they were like, you're saving the world today. And you're like, okay, cool.
Right.
And then also, I'm going to feel a whole lot better about this afterwards until I completely fucking melt down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. I think it's probably a weird reaction that we might be having to not only the trauma that was inflicted on us, but like the mix of emotions that we're subjected to during and possibly after it. There's definitely emotional manipulation happening during the abductions or after, for sure.
Yeah, for sure after, I think. And, you know, possibly during the abduction. But there's got to be a whole lot of, like, mental gymnastics on our part to try to even figure out how to process it.
And like I was saying, if these are multi-dimensional or extra-dimensional beings, it's kind of the same thing as like taking a look at a circle versus a sphere. And then imagine like us as third-dimensional beings that can absolutely comprehend that the sphere is, you know, on all sides. Think of a fucking shape or an object in a fourth dimension. Now try and process that not only through your eyes, but through your brain as well. Now imagine if these fucking beings or aliens came from the 10th dimension.
Right.
Like, we're basically pissing ourselves and screaming just trying to comprehend the fact that they are like non-Euclidean like creatures or objects existing in either a third dimensional space or somewhere in between where, like, fuck, I'm in another dimension or I'm in an interdimensional, like, spaceship or something, and there are these things that, like, my mind can't even wrap around the concept of existing. Like, of course, not only are you going to fucking black out everything that you can from it, but any, like, assistance that they're giving you, you're like, thanks, like, fucking pump in all those good feelings and shit, because, like, not only do people, like, molesting and violating me,
Right.
I can't even comprehend you on a conceptual, like, fundamental existence level. Like, what the fuck are you? What is happening?
Yeah.
And you're in my house.
Yeah, right. And that is what's happening too. But yeah, with these aliens and everything, especially on that case, who knows what's going on? We're being taken, we're being violated, and our answer so far is the best that scientists and the internet can come up with. So that kind of wraps up our small segment, at least at this point, on aliens.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a topic we'll return to. 'Cause
Yes.
there's lots more to be said.
Oh yeah, and there's constant research happening all the time. Like I was saying before in the show, if you guys are interested, especially in the more concrete evidence or at least case studies that are out there, definitely take a look into books and case studies written by Jacques Vallée. And on top of that, keep your guys' eyes open. Stay weird, you bastards.
You bastards.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll pick up conspiracy theories next week. Continue to check into the Facebook. I'm just talking to myself on there, so some feedback would definitely be appreciated. Check out and donate money to our Patreon. I would appreciate those dollars. Joaquin would as well.
I definitely would.
And we are starting to throw up stuff on YouTube as well. So even if it's an episode that's already been covered, pop in there, leave some comments for us. People on YouTube are savage, so we appreciate any defense we can get there or recommendations. And definitely tune in. Thanks for listening to Last Bastion of Sanity podcast. This has been Aliens.
Peace.